Chapter 1372. Madame Yang and Mu Rou were obviously shocked. The Mu family members were usually in the military, but Madame Yang and Mu Rou were different. Madame Yang was born as a rich young lady, and she didn't want her daughter to fight and kill. So she wanted her daughter to take the high school entrance exams and college entrance exams. This was originally a very common thing, but it was not common in the Mu family. Other than the descendants of the Mu family, who had no talent at all, the rest of the family members worked hard to become outstanding soldiers. Madame Yang actually envied the people in the Mu family from the bottom of her heart. Sometimes when they went out, they even bragged about who was more powerful in the Mu family. But Madame Yang never thought that the friend that her most hated niece, Mu Ying, brought back would be so powerful. Madame Yang was dumbfounded. Like Madame Yang, Mu Rou was also dumbfounded. Mu Rou originally thought that she was the only one who didn't know how to use knives and guns. But now there was Yun Jian, who didn't know how to use knives and guns even more than her. Because Yun Jian looked soft and weak, Mu Rou automatically classified Yun Jian as an ordinary person. But she never thought that Yun Jian would catch the fan flying towards her without even looking. If the fan hit Yun Jian's face, the pain would be unavoidable, but there wouldn't be any major problems. Just as Madame Yang and Mu Rou were stunned, they saw Yun Jian throw the fan back to the girl who had missed. Yun Jian seemed to throw the fan lightly, but when the girl over there caught the fan, her hands and feet were in a mess for a while. "Let's go over there." Mu Ying pointed to a short and old wooden hut next to the training ground. "Okay," Yun Jian softly replied. When the two of them walked over, Madame Yang and Mu Rou were still in shock. When Madame Yang and Mu Rou came to their senses, Mu Rou stomped her feet, then shouted at Yun Jian's back. "You're so powerful, if you have the guts, stay later and spar with my eldest cousin." Everyone could hear the provocation and unwillingness in her words. Yun Jian only laughed coldly, but didn't do anything else. Mu Rou, who stood rooted to the ground, could only stomp her feet. Lung Hanja, on the other hand, chased after Mu Ying. "Hey you, I haven't asked your name yet. You actually caught my fan just now, and also, I almost couldn't catch it when you threw it back at me. Can you tell me, how did you train to be so powerful? Can you teach me?" The girl who accidentally threw the fan in front of Yun Jian immediately ran over. When Yun Jian and Mu Ying were about to enter the wooden hut, she caught up to Yun Jian and stopped her, looking at her with a pair of curious eyes. "It's very simple." Yun Jian didn't say much. She only said these three words, then entered the wooden hut with Mu Ying. I'm Ying Ying's little cousin, my name is Mu Shuang. "Big sister, can you tell me how to play this fan as well as you?" The girl who called herself Mu Shuang saw Yun Jian enter the wooden hut. She followed up and asked. Mu Shuang was the youngest daughter of Mu Ying's uncle. She was 15 years old now, and was already in the third year of middle school. She had been mischievous since young, but was determined to become an outstanding soldier. When she saw Yun Jian playing with the fan so well, she quickly ran over to ask. Yun Jian smiled faintly, but didn't say much. Thus, Mu Shuang followed Yun Jian and Mu Ying into the wooden hut. Inside the wooden hut, Mu Ying led Yun Jian to a place where weapons were placed, then pointed at a shabby little desk in front of them, where all kinds of butterfly knives were placed. "These are the butterfly knives I've collected over the years. I know you like them. I thought I'd never see you again, but now, I'm giving them to you personally." Mu Ying turned to look at Yun Jian, her eyes flashing with sincerity. Hearing this, Mu Shuang didn't know what to say. Chapter 1373. Something flickered in Yun Jian's eyes when she heard Mu Ying's words. She went over and caressed the pile of butterfly knives on the small, shabby desk. Then there was a deathly silence. It was as quiet as still water. At this moment, even the talkative Mu Shuang and the suspicious Lung Hanja couldn't help but hold their breaths. Just when Mu Shuang and Lung Hanja thought Yun Jian wouldn't speak, they heard Yun Jian's calm and gentle voice. "I like it a lot." Her voice sounded very ordinary, but compared to Yun Jian's voice, it was a little lighter. It was a voice that could make one's imagination run wild. Mu Shuang's heart trembled slightly. "It's good that you like it." Mu Ying turned her head and smiled at Yun Jian. The way they spoke was very ordinary, as if they were strangers who had just met. But the two of them gave Lung Hanja and Mu Shuang the same feeling, as if they were old friends. Although they didn't know why they felt this way, Lung Hanja and Mu Shuang were completely shocked. Even they didn't know why they were shocked. It wasn't until a rough and hoarse roar came from outside the wooden hut that everyone reacted. What? Little sister Mu Ro, someone bullied you? Who? Who bullied you? The male voice was slightly hoarse, as if he was shouting at the top of his lungs. Soon Mu Ro's soft and pitiful voice came from outside the wooden hut. No, no one bullied me. Cousin Mu Ying also didn't casually bring strangers into the backyard. When this voice came out, the few people standing in the small wooden house in the backyard could even imagine Mu Ro's pitiful appearance when she pretended to be herself. What? Mu Ying brought strangers into the backyard? That's our Mu family's secret training ground. Does she want the whole world to know that we have a training ground? I'm going to teach her a lesson now. The rough male voice growled angrily. Then, they could hear the owner of the male voice walking towards them with large strides. Let's go out first, Mu Ying said to Yun Jian with a slight frown. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. When the two of them were about to walk out of the cabin, they heard Mu Shuang's surprised voice. Why are there fewer butterfly knives here? Didn't I just count 21? Right after Mu Shuang spoke, Yun Jian parted the hem of her shirt and showed the butterfly knives strapped to her waist side by side for her to see. Mu Shuang was stunned. After a while, she came back to her senses and stared at Yun Jian with wide eyes. When did you hide the butterfly knife? I clearly saw that you didn't do anything just now. And how did you hide so many butterfly knives? It looks like you didn't hide anything at all. This is too powerful. Mu Shuang's words were exactly what surprised Lung Hanja. Yun Jian smiled. She didn't say anything and walked out of the cabin with Mu Ying. After Yun Jian and Mu Ying walked out of the cabin, they saw the owner of the rough voice standing in front of them. This person was about 20 years old. He was wearing a military uniform and looked quite handsome. Seeing an unfamiliar girl standing beside Mu Ying, the man in military uniform frowned. Mu Ro was standing beside him. After the man frowned, he turned to look at Yun Jian. He shouted at Mu Ying angrily, Mu Ying, are you the one who brought this stranger into our backyard? As he spoke, the man clenched his fists, causing them to emit cracking sounds as he spoke in a dignified manner. Chapter 1374. This man was Mu Shuang's biological older brother, and also the biological son of Mu Ying's uncle. His name was Mu Rue. He was 28 years old, and served as a special forces soldier in the army. Although Mu Rue was Mu Shuang's biological older brother, for some reason, he doted on his cousin Mu Ro. In the past, whenever Mu Ro was bullied, he would act as if he had heard something terrible, and rush up to protect Mu Ro. It was the same today. When Mu Ro said such a sentence in front of Mu Rue shouted at Mu Ying in a hoarse voice. Mu Ying brought Yun Jian out not because she wanted to deal with Mu Rue. Yun Jian, I'll pack the remaining butterfly knives for you when you go home. Let's go to my room now, Mu Ying said as she led Yun Jian around Mu Rue. Mu Rue saw this, because his biological younger sister, Mu Shuang, grabbed his arm and told him not to make things difficult for Yun Jian. He had already planned to stop. Just as he thought this, he heard Mu Ro cry softly to Madame Yang. I don't have a biological older brother. You all have biological older brothers. Mom, why don't you give birth to a biological older brother for me? Mu Ying was the daughter of the eldest son, second son, and third son of the Mu family. The second son and third son of the Mu family each had a boy and a girl. Only the eldest son had a girl. Mu Ying also had a biological older brother, but he didn't come back today. Mu Ro's cries were too much for the people present, especially Mu Rue. He was closer to Mu Ro. When he heard Mu Ro's words, he immediately stood in front of Yun Jian and Mu Ying. Mu Ying, how did you bully younger sister Mu Ro just now? Or did you say that this friend of yours bullied younger sister Mu Ro? Hurry up and apologize, Mu Rue said as he clenched his fist. Seeing her brother, Mu Rue, bullying Mu Ying and Yun Jian, and knowing that her brother was very strong, Mu Shuang quickly ran away. She ran away, but she didn't really run away. Instead, she went to call for help. Seeing that Mu Rui stood up for her, Mu Ro, who was standing behind Mu Rui, sneered at Mu Ying and Yin Jian from an angle that Mu Rui couldn't see. Mu Rui was a Special Forces soldier, and a National Key Special Forces soldier. He was very strong, more powerful than the average Advanced Special Forces soldier, and was protected by the country. At the same time, Mu Rui would be qualified to represent Country Z and enter the hunting school in half a year's time. The number of Special Forces soldiers in Country Z who could enter the hunting school could be counted on one hand, but it was also the lifelong wish of countless Special Forces soldiers to be selected as a candidate to enter the hunting school. There was no doubt that Mu Rui was very strong. After all, for a place like the hunting school, the death rate was extremely high if an ordinary person entered. There, the elimination rate could sometimes be as high as 80%. It was the world's most famous devil training base. This also fully explained Mu Rui's strength. Brother Mu Rui, this girl has some skills. Why don't you guys have a one-on-one fight? Let her see how strong you are. Mu Ro stopped pretending to cry. She looked up at Yin Jian and said to Mu Rui smugly. After saying that, Mu Ro even bragged to Yin Jian. My brother Mu Rui is a Special Forces soldier who is about to represent the country and enter the hunting school. Hee, do you know about the hunting school? It's the internationally famous Special Forces training base. There was an indescribable sense of bragging in her words. Hearing Mu Ro's words, Yin Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. Mu Rui also raised his head slightly under Mu Ro's bragging, feeling a little proud. He was only 28 years old and already qualified to enter the hunting school. This was unheard of in the entire Country Z. However, the Special Forces soldiers who were qualified to enter the hunting school were generally not younger than 40 years old. Just as Mu Rui was feeling proud, Yin Jian smiled and said, "What a coincidence. I'm going to the hunting school too." It would have been better if Yin Jian did not say anything. Once she said that, Mu Ro and Mu Rui were dumbfounded. What? Yin Jian was going to the hunting school too? She could go too. How old was she? She was at most 17 years old. Chapter 1375. The hunting school is not a place that young people like you can go to whenever you want. Moreover, you have to sign a life and death agreement before entering the hunting school. Do you know what a life and death agreement is? Signing a life and death agreement means that once you enter the hunting school, no matter what happens, the consequences will be borne by the student. During the training period, you can die at any time. Die. Aren't you afraid? When Mu Rui came back to his senses, he obviously did not believe what Yin Jian said. For a moment, he forgot what he said earlier and spoke to Yin Jian in a very agitated tone. To be able to enter and graduate from the hunting school was a great honor in the eyes of the Special Forces from various countries. Mu Rui was also proud to be qualified to enter the hunting school. However, now that a young girl suddenly stood in front of him and told him that she wanted to go to the hunting school, other than not believing it, Mu Rui was extremely displeased that Yin Jian used something that was a great honor in his eyes to fool around. Therefore, when he spoke to Yin Jian, Mu Rui's tone was rather agitated and had a hint of disgust towards Yin Jian. Mu Rui said so much because he wanted Yin Jian to back off and recognize herself. The hunting school was not a place that anyone could enter just because they wanted to. Not everyone could enter just because they felt that they were qualified. Just when Mu Rui thought that the life and death agreement he mentioned would scare Yin Jian into backing off, he saw Yin Jian curl her lips into a faint smile. In the next second, she stopped smiling and raised her cold eyes. I know everything about the hunting school better than you do. As for the life and death agreement, if you want to use your strength to defy the heavens and disregard life and death, you don't deserve to say that. Yin Jian's voice was not loud, but it was so clear that Mu Rui and everyone around felt that her voice was extremely loud. Everyone around them was stupefied by Yin Jian's words. Don't make it sound like you've really been to the hunting school. You're just a little kid in your teens. You really know so much. If you have the ability. At this time, Mu Ro dropped her soft and weak disguise. She was interrupted halfway through her words. Ha ha ha. This little girl's words were quite interesting. I love it. An old man in his 70s wearing a military uniform walked over from afar. There were several people behind the old man, all of whom were dressed in military uniforms. At this moment Mu Shuang, who had just run out, was holding Grandpa Shun's hand and walking over. Needless to say, he was Mu Ying's grandfather, Grandpa Mu. "Grandpa, look at my brother. He only knows how to bully people." Mu Shuang grabbed Grandpa Mu's hand and shook it. Then, she pointed at Mu Rui and said to Grandpa Mu, "Ha ha ha. Little girl, you said that you know more about the hunting school than my grandson Rui. Then have you been to the hunting school?" Grandpa Mu smiled kindly at Mu Shuang. Then, he turned his eyes to Yun Jian and laughed. Mu Rui could be considered as Grandpa Mu's grandson. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Grandpa Mu was not as simple as he seemed. "Yes." Yun Jian made a muffled sound from her throat. "Little girl, standing in front of you is Grandpa Mu, one of the first batch of special forces, to be sent to the hunting school to further his studies. He is the only one in that batch who successfully graduated from the hunting school. He is also the first student to graduate from the hunting school in our country. Even the principal of the hunting school, Chans, keeps in touch with Grandpa Mu." One of the people standing behind Grandpa Mu said loudly to Yun Jian. His words were full of pride and bragging. Even Grandpa Mu was affected by the atmosphere and felt a trace of pride in his heart. However, at this moment Yun Jian, who was standing in front of everyone, suddenly smiled and looked straight at Grandpa Mu. She said calmly. Chapter 1376. Chans was the principal of the hunting school. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Old Master Mu and the people standing behind him were all stunned. Even Mu Rui gasped. How dare Yun Jian talk about the principal of the hunting school like that? Did she know what she was saying? After they came back to their senses, Mu Rou and Mrs. Yang stood at a distance. Mu Rou questioned Yun Jian. "Are you out of your mind to show off? How dare you talk about Principal Chans like that? Even my grandpa is respectful to Principal Chans. Who do you think you are? How dare you talk about Principal Chans like that?" Mu Rou kept mentioning Principal Chans, but in fact, Mu Rou did not even know what Principal Chans looked like. It was only because Old Master Mu used to talk about Principal Chans in front of his children and grandchildren in a respectful tone. Therefore, Mu Rou played along with Old Master Mu's favorite words and talked back to Yun Jian. Yun Jian chuckled softly at that. It was a cold sneer. Seeing this, Old Master Mu's heart skipped a beat. Just as Mu Rou finished speaking, Old Master Mu looked at Yun Jian in shock. Without caring about Mu Rou, he continued. "How did you know that Principal Chans was assassinated by a high-level assassin?" He looked at Yun Jian in shock with his mouth slightly agape. This scene stunned the people standing behind Old Master Mu. It had been many years since Old Master Mu showed such a shocked expression. And most importantly, the rude words that the little girl had just said were actually the truth? Is it that hard to find out? Yun Jian glanced sideways at Old Master Mu. She pursed her lips slightly and smiled. If Old Master Mu only treated Yun Jian as an interesting child at the beginning, he had to look at her seriously now. To the average person, it was very difficult to find out about this. However, to the people in the underworld and the industry, this was not a secret at all. It was the first time that Grandpa Mu had met a little girl whom he could not see through. He narrowed his eyes. Grandpa Mu suddenly bursts into laughter to ease the awkwardness. "Ha ha ha, you little girl, interesting. It was really too interesting. That's right, Principal Chans was indeed assassinated by a group of high-level assassins some time ago. I didn't expect a junior like you to know about this." Old Master Mu did not plan to get to the bottom of Yun Jian's story in front of everyone. He even changed the way he addressed Yun Jian, from a little girl to a little girl. If it had been anyone else present, they would have asked Yun Jian everything. However, Grandpa Mu was already in his 70s. At his age, he had experienced a lot. Naturally, he understood that the more mysterious something was, the more it was best not to get to the bottom of it. He wouldn't do anything that would bring trouble to himself. Grandpa Mu's words made Mu Rou feel ashamed. After all, Mu Rou was the first one who stood out to refute Yun Jian. Mu Rui didn't expect that Yun Jian would know so much about something that even he didn't know. For the first time, he felt that he had met his match. And the other party was a girl who was not even 18 years old yet. Little girl, you're so interesting. You must stay with us for a few more days. I heard that the military academy has a 7-day break, right? Why don't you stay with us for the next few days? Grandpa Mu tried to persuade Yunjian to stay. It was a very ordinary way to persuade someone to stay. However, when it came from Grandpa Mu's mouth, the meaning was very different. Grandpa Mu had a great military record when he was young. He was even a general. Even though he had retired now, he was still very prestigious. Most importantly, those who could be invited by Grandpa Mu to stay were either elites with amazing military records or famous military talents. However, it was the first time he had seen someone invite a teenage girl in such a solemn tone. Therefore, everyone around was surprised, especially those standing behind Grandpa Mu. Chapter 1377. Yunjian's rejection was straightforward, leaving no room for negotiation. Yunjian's rejection left everyone dumbfounded. Even old Master Mu himself was a little surprised. In the past, people could not wait to curry favor with him. But today he personally invited Yunjian. But Yunjian turned him down on the spot. This was something that had never happened before. Slightly shocked, old Master Mu swallowed his saliva. Then he swallowed and said to Yunjian, "Little girl, you must come to my house when you're free." Okay. Yunjian nodded this time. Muing was at the Mu family's house, so she would definitely come over. Yunjian, let's go. Muing pulled Yunjian's hand and walked towards her room in the villa. After taking 2 steps, Muing thought of Lung Hanja again. She turned to look at Lung Hanja expressionlessly and said to him, "You can leave first." After that, she went to Yunjian's room with her. Old Master Mu and the others who were standing on the training ground were totally ignored. Fortunately, old Master Mu knew Muing well. As Mu Ying's friend, Yunjian must be the same. Let's go. Let's go. Old Master Mu smiled awkwardly, and then left with his people. Mu Ro, who was standing at the same spot, stomped her feet. Madame Yang pressed her shoulder. Seeing that Mu Rue had left, Mu Ro said to Mrs. Yang angrily, "Mom, I'm so angry." Don't worry. Humph. I don't believe that I can't handle these 2 girls. Mrs. Yang snorted and comforted her daughter. She looked at Yunjian and Mu Ying's figures and wondered why she was so angry. Yunjian and Mu Ying had just taken 2 steps when a sweet girl's voice came from behind. "Sister Mu Ying, wait for me." As soon as she said that, Yunjian caught sight of a small figure hugging Yunjian and Mu Ying's shoulders. Yunjian did not avoid it. It was Mu Shuang. Mu Shuang and Mu Ying were very close. She also liked Yunjian. "I was the one who called Grandpa here just now. I was afraid that Auntie and the others would trick my brother to bully you guys together." Mu Shuang stood between Yunjian and Mu Ying happily as she hugged both of their shoulders. Mu Shuang was only 1 year younger than Yunjian's current body. Her actual age was 2 years younger. However, Mu Shuang gave people the feeling that she was a little sister who should be protected. Even Mu Ying, who had a cold personality, could not help but reach out and rub Mu Shuang's head. She said softly, "Good girl." Hee. Mu Shuang lowered her head shyly. Then, she turned to Yunjian and asked, "Sister, can I sleep with you and Sister Mu Ying tonight?" "Up to you." Yunjian threw her 2 simple words. "Yay, that's great. I'll go get my blanket." Mu Shuang ran to her room energetically. The Mu family had dinner together as a family. Other than Madame Yang and Mu Ro, everyone else was especially friendly to Yunjian. Before going to bed, Mu Ying's current mother, Tian Fangfang, deliberately changed the bedsheets and quilts. She even asked Yunjian if she was not used to it, and told her to tell her everything. She was extremely polite. 1:30 a.m. Yunjian, Mu Ying, and Mu Shuang were lying on the bed. They were not asleep and were still chatting. Although they were chatting, it was actually Mu Shuang who was talking the whole time. "Sisters, I feel that you're both amazing. You're my role models," Mu Shuang said a lot. Just as she was about to say something, Yunjian suddenly covered her mouth. In the dark, she saw Yunjian make a shushing gesture. Mu Shuang immediately shut her mouth. Just as she shut her mouth, she heard a sound from the corridor outside. It was so soft that if one did not listen carefully, one would not be able to hear it at all. Mom, are they really asleep? They must be asleep. I saw them lying on the bed to rest at 9:30 a.m. How could they not be asleep now? It's been almost 4 hours. Be quiet. Don't let anyone hear you. Chapter 1378. If it wasn't for Yun Jian covering Mu Shuang's mouth in time, Madame Yang and Mu Rou, who were sneaking in from the corridor outside the bedroom, would have definitely heard Mu Shuang's voice. Madame Yang and Mu Rou might have immediately retreated, but at this moment, Madame Yang and Mu Rou didn't hear any sound, so they thought that Yun Jian and the other two had really fallen asleep. Yun Jian covered Mu Shuang's mouth, and Mu Shuang was very obedient and didn't make any sound. Even her breathing slowed down a lot. Then, about 30 seconds passed outside the corridor, but there was no sound of Madame Yang and Mu Rou's voices. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. She knew that Madame Yang and Mu Rou must have their ears pressed against the bedroom door to check if the three of them were really asleep. Mu Shuang blinked. Although she didn't know what the situation was, she was willing to follow Yun Jian's instructions. 30 seconds later, Madame Yang, who was leaning against the bedroom door, finally confirmed that Yun Jian and the other two were really asleep. Thus, Madame Yang's voice sounded again. Later, after I use the knockout powder to knock them out, you guys quickly sneak in and get it over with quickly. Remember, after this, you have to pretend that this place was stolen by thieves. Those 3 women were just an accident during your theft. Madame Yang used a low voice to speak to the people in the shadows. Her voice was very soft, so soft that Mu Shuang couldn't hear it at all. However, Yun Jian could clearly hear every word that Madame Yang said. Mu Ying could also hear every word that Madame Yang, who was standing in the corridor at this moment, said. Mom, hurry up. I already can't wait to see the 3 of them fall from grace. Especially Mu Ying, who told her to pretend to be cold and aloof all the time. I want to see if Brother Hanja still wants her after he finds out that she has lost her virginity. If Brother Hanja is mine, no one can steal it. After a while, Mu Rou's voice could be heard. The more she spoke, the more excited she became. In the end, Yun Jian heard Madame Yang tugging at Mu Rou and whispering to Mu Rou, lower your voice. Do you want to wake them up? Then there was no sound from the corridor. But Yun Jian knew that the silence was the prelude to the arrival of danger. Yun Jian released the hand covering Mu Shuang's mouth. She turned over and jumped off the bed. But strangely, she didn't make any sound. After she got off the bed, she walked over to the coffee table next to Mu Ying's window and took out 3 pieces of tissue. Then she silently walked back to the bed and handed the other 2 pieces of tissue to Mu Shuang and Mu Ying under the moonlight that shone through the window. After Mu Shuang and Mu Ying took the tissue, Yun Jian cut her piece of tissue in half and skillfully stuffed it between her nostrils. Mu Shuang and Mu Ying did the same. Madame Yang, who was outside the door, used the small crack under the bedroom door to blow in the knockout incense. She didn't stop until she was sure that the amount was enough to knock out Yun Jian, Mu Ying, and Mu Shuang. By this time, Madame Yang had already confirmed that Yun Jian and the other 2 had been knocked out. She directly used the spare key to open the door to Mu Ying's room, then beckoned the few vulgar men, who were dressed like beggars, to enter Mu Ying's room. Remember what I said. Be quick with your hands and feet. Hurry up and come out when you're done. Madame Yang said impatiently. The few vulgar men dressed like beggars walked into Mu Ying's room one after another. After a while, there were banging sounds and muffled grunts. Why were the grunts so rough? Madame Yang shook her head and stopped thinking about it. It was fine as long as it was done. After about 10 minutes, Madame Yang pulled her daughter Mu Rou to open the door. She thought that the beggars were done and urged them to hurry up. However, the moment she opened the door, Madame Yang felt a dark shadow suddenly strike her neck, and she fainted. Chapter 1379. At the far end of the corridor, under the moonlight, a petite and perfect figure walked out of the bedroom. Yun Jian was the one who had knocked out Madame Yang and Mu Rou. As for the banging sounds and the slightly rough groans, Yun Jian and Mu Ying had grabbed the men dressed as beggars and stuffed large pieces of tissue into their mouths. Then, afraid that Madame Yang and Muro would not believe them, she would kick the men every few seconds. This was the reason for the banging sounds. Madame Yang had thought it was strange, but she did not care. In the end, they were tied up by Yun Jian. Aunt and cousin, why did they do this to us? Mu Shuang was a little shocked, but she did not show any signs of being unable to accept it. On the contrary, Mu Shuang's ability to accept it was beyond imagination. They're so bored that they're waiting for me to return the favor. Yun Jian dragged Madame Yang and Mu Rou into the bedroom. In the bedroom, 5 or 6 men dressed as beggars loosened the tissue in their mouths and begged Yun Jian for mercy. Oh my God! I was wrong. It's all their fault. They paid us 5,000 yuan to do this. It's them, it's all their fault. Let us go. We'll do anything you ask us to do. Please don't call the police. The 5 or 6 men who were dressed like beggars did not say anything. Madame Yang and Mu Rou had paid them 5,000 yuan to do this. Not only would they get money, but they would also get to sleep with delicate and clean female students. This was a very good deal. Oh, the 3 of us are only worth 5,000 yuan? Yun Jian hooked her chin with her thumb and index finger. She looked at the 5 or 6 men dressed as beggars lazily, and then smiled playfully. This smile was slightly strange, and it gave people a creepy feeling just by looking at it. These 5 or 6 men dressed as beggars were shocked by Yun Jian and Mu Ying's frightening skills. Especially Yun Jian. When the 5 or 6 men dressed like beggars entered the house, they couldn't even cry for help. They were tied up by Yun Jian and Mu Ying, and their mouths were covered. Anything? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes when she heard the words of the 5 or 6 men dressed as beggars. Right. Sister. Can we call you Big Sister? Sis, please let us go. We are really innocent. These 5 or 6 men dressed like beggars were afraid that they would make Yun Jian unhappy, so they shouted one after another. It's not that I can't let you go. I'll give each of you 10 cents. Drag these 2 women into the woods. Just do whatever they wanted you to do to us. Yun Jian, who had been sitting lazily on the bed, stood up and looked at the men with narrowed eyes. At the same time, Yun Jian took out 6 10 cents from nowhere. Then, she clasped her hands and threw the 6 10 cents in front of the 6 men. Yang Shi's and Mu Rou's prices were only worth 60 cents. The 6 men were scared silly. They didn't know why, but Yun Jian's aura and her gesture of taking out 60 cents from nowhere scared them out of their wits. Mu Ying, untie them, Yun Jian said with pursed lips. Hearing this, Mu Ying stepped forward and untied the ropes on the 6 men. Let me give you a piece of advice. You'd better do your jobs obediently. Otherwise, don't appear in Min City in the future. Otherwise, haha. Yun Jian didn't finish her sentence. The 6 men were staring at Yun Jian in unison. They were obviously scared stiff. However, Yun Jian curled her lips slightly and said, Don't look at me like that. I know that you are from Min City and can't leave Min City. Do your jobs well, and pretend that nothing happened today. Yun Jian's words made the 6 men's eyes widen again. Chapter 1380. If one were to ask Yun Jian how she knew that these 6 men were residents of Min City, and that it was impossible for them to leave the city, the answer was neither simple nor difficult. It was a secret. Oh my God. We'll definitely do as you say. We'll listen to you. We'll listen to you. One of the men was so frightened by Yun Jian's words that he thought that Yun Jian was psychic. He was so scared that he almost peed in his pants. Throw these 2 lumps out. Yun Jian pointed at Madame Yang and Mu Rou on the ground. Because the 6 men were afraid of Yun Jian, they quickly dragged Madame Yang and Mu Rou away, and really brought them to the forest. Mu Shuang, who had recovered from her shock, pursed her lips and said, Does this count as first aunt cheating on first uncle? Maybe. Yun Jian tilted her head slightly at Mu Shuang and said these 2 words softly. 10 minutes later, Yun Jian, Mu Ying, and Mu Shuang were lying on the bed in the bedroom again. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion downstairs, followed by a series of sirens. Mu Ying and Mu Shuang, who had just fallen asleep, sat up straight when they heard the sirens. Mu Ying sat up straight on the bed and explained to Yun Jian as she got off the bed. This is the siren of our Mu family. It will only sound when something big has happened. gather at the front hall. Sister Muing, did something really happen? Mu Shuang asked fearfully. At the same time, she got off the bed and put on her shoes without slowing down. Yin Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. Mu Shuang was used to wearing long pajamas, so she had to wear a pair of pants under her dress. Yin Jian and Muing had developed the habit of wearing normal clothes when they slept. This way, they could just get out of bed and leave if something happened. Mu Shuang was also nimble. After Mu Shuang put on her pants, the three of them went downstairs without even changing out of her pajamas. Downstairs in front of the hall, the whole family ran out in their pajamas when they heard the sirens. Dad, Mom, what's the matter? Mu Shuang shouted at a middle-aged man and woman who were not far away from him. Hung, take the children and leave quickly. It's a killer who's after me. Grandpa Mu stood in front of everyone, and Grandma Mu was beside him. Old Master Mu calmly spoke to his second son, Mu Ying's father, Mu Hong. Dad, what about you? Mu Hong's face darkened when he heard that it was an assassin. Then he asked anxiously. The children are more important. Evacuate with the children first. Grandpa Mu clenched his fists and shouted at Mu Hong. Quick, go now. Mu Hong turned around and asked the children to leave with him. My wife and Ruru are missing? Where did they go? Where did they go? Grandpa Mu's eldest son, Mu Feng's voice could be heard from upstairs. Go first. You guys go first. Grandpa Mu urged Mu Hong again when he saw that the situation was not good. Bam! Just then the door was kicked open, and a group of killers swarmed in. The leading killer only had one eye. At this moment, the leading killer was staring straight at Old Master Mu. He laughed cruelly and said, Today is the day that the Mu family will be exterminated. Don't even think about escaping. Grandpa, Mu Rue wanted to go forward, but he was stopped by Grandpa Mu. Lone Wolf. You're Lone Wolf, number 9 on the killer ranking. Grandpa Mu suddenly thought of a code name when he saw that the leading killer only had one eye. His face changed drastically. If he was alone today, he could still deal with them. But today, he had a whole family behind him, and a group of children. Moreover, Grandpa Mu was not as strong as he was when he was young. All of you must die, Lone Wolf shouted, just when he was about to wave his hand to order the killers behind him to kill everyone at the scene. Chapter 1381. This sharp and straightforward female voice sounded like the heavenly voice of the Grim Reaper in everyone's ears. Especially Old Master Mu. He was ready to fight to the death with this group of senior killers. He just wanted to buy time for the children to leave. The Mu family could not be destroyed. The children could not be implicated. This was what Old Master Mu was thinking now. For him, as long as he could watch the children grow up healthily, it would be the hope of his life. He could die, but the children couldn't. They still had a bright future ahead of them. However, Old Master Mu did not expect that this female voice would be heard in an instant and reach everyone's ears without any warning. More importantly, the sharp and straightforward female voice belonged to Yun Jian, this mysterious and amazing girl. Ying, tell your friend to stop talking. Dad will take you away. Everyone in the Mu family was shocked, especially Mu Hong. He hurriedly said to Muing, trying to get Muing to stop Yun Jian from talking nonsense. Mu Hong didn't mean anything else. He just felt that if Yun Jian said something else, she would attract the attention of this group of senior killers in front of them. Yun Jian was a friend that their daughter Muing had brought home as a guest in the first place. Yun Jian was the most innocent. If something really happened to Yun Jian in their house, even Mu Hong would feel bad about it. Not to mention Old Master Mu. Old Master Mu was a frank soldier, although he had been retired for many years. If anything happened to Yun Jian, who was a guest in his house, Old Master Mu was the kind of person who would sacrifice his own grandson. They had to save Yun Jian's righteousness first. Seeing that Lone Wolf and the other senior killers were stunned after hearing Yun Jian's words, Old Master Mu hurriedly urged his second son, Mu Hong, and Mu Hong's wife, Tian Fong Fong, to take the children away first. Hong, go quickly. Grandpa Mu takes out a foldable military knife from his pocket and stands in front of everyone. He is the first to confront Lone Wolf and the other senior killers. Kids, come with us. Tian Fangfang ran over and grabbed Yunjian and Mu Ying's hands. She was about to leave through the back door of the villa. Mu Ying had a biological brother, who was not at home at the moment. Tian Fangfang ran over and grabbed Yunjian and Mu Ying's hands, intending to evacuate as soon as possible. However, when she tugged at her daughter Mu Ying and Yunjian's hands, she realized that the two of them did not turn around with her at all. Yunjian let go of Tian Fangfang's hand that was holding her gently and took 2 steps toward Lone Wolf, before going around old Mu to stand in front of the crowd, her sharp gaze meeting Lone Wolf's. When Lone Wolf heard Yunjian's words just now, he was completely stunned. At this moment, seeing Yunjian walking towards him, Lone Wolf narrowed his eyes and asked, "Who are you?" Seeing that Yunjian was not willing to leave and was about to walk up to them, Mu Rui was so angry that he almost vomited blood. "Yunjian, are you crazy? They are killers. What do you want to do?" Mu Rui clenched his teeth and glared at Yunjian. He looked like he was exasperated with her failure to live up to his expectations, as if he wanted to tear her into pieces. Mu Rui had already found her an eyesore when she was behaving mysteriously earlier. But what about Yunjian? This time, she did not listen to his advice and walked up to Lone Wolf directly. Lone Wolf. He was ranked 9th on the list of killers. They could not defeat him. Therefore, they could only choose a way to escape. But what about Yunjian? She actually stood out to make trouble. Rui, take her away. This is my own business. Seeing that Yunjian was standing in front of Lone Wolf, Grandpa Mu panicked and shouted at Mu Rui. When Mu Rui heard this, he wanted to say, "Who the hell would save her?" However, when he heard that Yunjian had already drawn a beautiful red arc and was facing Lone Wolf, she simply said something that made everyone present dumbfounded again. Lone Wolf was shocked on the spot. Chapter 1382. Not only Lone Wolf, but the assassins behind him were dumbfounded by Yunjian's baffling reply as well. Old Master Mu, who stood behind Yunjian, was shocked as well. He was not the only one who was taken aback. Everyone in the Mu family, who stood behind Old Master Mu, sucked in a breath as well. What did Yunjian mean by what she said now? "You? What do you mean?" Even Mu Rui, who had been so aggressive just now, asked Yunjian with a trembling voice. Mu Rui didn't even know why he was trembling. Mu Rui felt that Yunjian was even more mysterious. From the moment he saw Yunjian, he felt that this little girl was covered with a veil, making her unfathomable. However, Mu Rui didn't like others to be more mysterious than him, so he denied Yunjian from the beginning. Lone Wolf had an ominous feeling. He felt that he had offended someone he shouldn't have. "So it's better not to say some things. Otherwise you might lose your life." Yunjian curled her lips and said with a faint smile. Old Master Mu, and the rest of the Mu family behind him, didn't know that Lone Wolf was a member of the kosher mercenaries. They only knew that Lone Wolf was the 9th assassin on the international assassin list. At the same time, the only thing Old Master Mu knew was that Lone Wolf must have an organization. And Yunjian's words. Was she talking about Lone Wolf's organization? And Yunjian's words meant, Old Master Mu's eyes suddenly widened. He looked at Yunjian, who was standing in front of him, and the rest of the Mu family, and looking at Lone Wolf's group of assassins in disbelief. Was she the one who had control of Lone Wolf's organization? No. That was impossible. How old was she? If it was her, she wouldn't have been able to go to the military academy. Grandpa Mu shook his head again, and dismissed his unrealistic imagination. After hearing Yunjian's words, Lone Wolf pondered deeply. He had already guessed what Yunjian's words meant. Could it be that she was? However, Yunjian interrupted Lone Wolf's you. Her following words made Lone Wolf completely abandon his desire to stand out. She is. Seeing that Lone Wolf's expression did not change, but a trace of fear flashed across his eyes, Yunjian only smiled slightly. Lone Wolf was indeed a member of the kosher mercenaries. With a slight smile, Yunjian looked at Lone Wolf and suddenly changed her tone. She asked him in fluent Hindi, "How is the organization doing recently?" When Lone Wolf heard that Yunjian was deliberately talking to him in a foreign language, his eyes flickered. He was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses. He glanced at Yunjian, and then spoke in the same fluent Hindi. The organization is doing well. Uh-huh. Yunjian nodded and then said in Hindi, when you go back, ask Mad Dragon to wait for us in the Amazon forest. When Yunjian said this, Lone Wolf was stunned again. He then nodded blankly. Uh-huh. Mad Dragon was the god of war, ranked third on the international secret agent ranking. He had just been poached by Yunjian from the Hun organization to the Kosha mercenaries. His status was extraordinary as soon as he joined. Seeing that Yunjian knew so much about the Kosha mercenaries, Lone Wolf was sure that Yunjian was the god in his heart. Alright, it's fine. You can leave now. Don't appear here again. This sentence was said in Chinese. Yunjian waved at Lone Wolf after she finished speaking. Lone Wolf obediently turned around and left with the group of high-level assassins. Seeing this scene, Grandpa Mu and everyone in the Mu family were stunned. What was going on? Didn't this group of assassins say that they were here to destroy the Mu family? Why were they sent away by Yunjian with just a few words? Chapter 1383. Rather than saying that Lone Wolf had obediently left with a group of high-level hitmen, it was more like Lone Wolf and the group of high-level hitmen had disappeared as quickly as they could, as if they had encountered something terrifying. For a moment, the surroundings fell into silence again. It was eerily quiet. The people around were all dumbfounded. They all stared at Yunjian and opened their mouths, but no words came out. Those few high-level hitmen, in addition to their leader Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf was ranked 9th on the international hitman rankings. Just because of a few words that Yunjian said. Did they run away with their tails between their legs? In the end, it was old Master Mu who broke the silence. Even old Master Mu, who was used to seeing all kinds of strange things, was stuttering in disbelief. They won't come back. You can sleep peacefully. Yunjian yawned slightly, then turned around and waved at Mu Ying and Mu Shuang, intending to go upstairs to sleep. Old Master Mu and the rest of the Mu family, who were facing the threat of being wiped out, stared blankly at Yunjian as she waved at Mu Ying and Mu Shuang to go upstairs. When Yunjian, Mu Ying, and Mu Shuang's figures disappeared from sight, old Master Mu and the rest of the Mu family swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Grandpa, who the hell is she? And are those hitmen really not coming back? Should we leave? Otherwise, what if they come back? You can't take what she said seriously. Mu Rue still didn't believe Yunjian's words. However, Mu Rue was interrupted by old Master Mu before he could finish his sentence. Seeing is believing. The truth is right in front of us. Rue, or you'd better calm down. You have to give in to her when you see her in the future. Don't blame me for not reminding you. If it wasn't because of something special about her, those hitmen would never have left. That's Lone Wolf, ranked 9th on the international hitman list. Do you think this is a joke? It's not that grandfather is exaggerating. If it wasn't for her today, our Mu clan, without Xuanqiu, would definitely not be able to escape the calamity of being exterminated. So, all of you better remember this clearly. From today onwards, she is our family's great benefactor. Grandpa Mu gritted his teeth and said each word solemnly. The she here was naturally referring to Yunjian. Everyone in the Mu family responded, but in fact, everyone was amazed by Yunjian's previous actions. The night passed uneventfully. However, as the eldest son of the Mu family, old Master Mu's eldest son, Mu Feng, couldn't sleep the entire night. Because his wife and daughter had gone missing. Even the rest of the Mu family didn't have a good night's sleep. One by one, they ran out to look for her. It was not until 4:45 a.m., when the sun had already risen from the east, that they found Madame Yang and Mu Rou in a small forest not far from the Mu residence. When they found them, Madame Yang and Mu Rou were still unconscious, but their clothes were nowhere to be found. Moreover, there were traces of being molested all over their bodies. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell what had happened with a single glance. The two of them only had a piece of clothing covering their bodies, but it couldn't cover their shame. At this moment, Yunjian was sitting in Mu Ying's bedroom, fanning herself with a huge electric fan. Mu Shuang and Mu Ying were playing poker with Yunjian. No. Who did it? Who did it? No. Sitting in Mu Ying's bedroom, She could hear Mu Feng's heart-wrenching screams coming from downstairs. His daughter and wife were both. If Mu Feng could still keep his composure at this time, it would be illogical. Yin Jian reached out and gently caressed her ears. Then, she looked up at the huge clock hanging on Mu Ying's bed. The clock's minute hand was pointing at 6:30 a.m. She got up and told Mu Ying and Mu Shuang. It's 6:30 a.m. I should go. Then, Yun Jian turned to tell Mu Ying. See you tomorrow in Longmen City. Both of them would depart for the Amazon forest tomorrow. Okay. Mu Ying nodded at Yin Jian. Chapter 1384. At 7 in the morning, Yun Jian prepared her luggage and left the Mu residence to return to Longmen City. Just as she was about to head downstairs, Yun Jian's phone rang. Yun Jian's eyes flickered as she took out her phone to check, only to see a caller ID glaring on the screen. My dearest hubby, mobile phones in 1999 did not have the functions of modern smartphones. Mobile phones back then were similar to old-age phones now, but the picture quality was much worse than old-age phones now, and they were usually black and white. Although it was called a black and white screen, the black color did not look like normal black. Yun Jian's gaze shifted slightly when she saw the caller ID. Mobile phones back then were not as good as they were now, but they could already be used as a caller ID. It was CE who added the caller ID, and did not allow her to change it. He had actually secretly told her something before he left. He said that if she changed the caller ID, he would kiss her the next time he saw her. He even said that he would cough. Just as Yun Jian thought about it, Mu Shuang hopped down from the bed and went to Yun Jian. As she hopped down, Mu Shuang asked with a chuckle, Jie, who called you? As she spoke, Mu Shuang went to Yun Jian and peeked at the phone in Yun Jian's hand. 6 words were written on it. My dearest hubby, Jie, are you in a relationship? Mu Shuang straightened in shock. Girls in the past did not date so openly like now. Dating was no longer a rare thing now. However, it was rare for people in the past to be in a relationship. Of course, at that time, girls also dated, but at that time, teenagers didn't date as openly as they did now. I'm married. Yun Jian's words were shocking. Bang! Just as Yun Jian finished, Mu Ying flipped off the bed. Mu Ying stood up without even a grunt of pain. She stared at Yun Jian blankly, not caring that she had accidentally flipped off the bed and landed on the floor, causing a bump to swell up. You're married? Really? Mu Ying looked at Yun Jian with a rare look of surprise. She had thought that Yun Jian would be a loner like her, living in the same environment as when she was young. She might even live alone for the rest of her life. Mu Ying did not expect Yun Jian to be married. Country R's marriage certificate. I'm married. Yun Jian answered the call after that, leaving Mu Ying and Mu Shuang in shock. Siyi's rich male voice rang from the other end of the phone. Xiao Jian. Siyi's voice was indescribably seductive. It was the kind of feeling that just by listening to his voice, one would feel that he was indescribably handsome. Hearing this, Mu Shuang's eyes lit up. Of course, it wasn't out of envy or jealousy, but out of pure curiosity. Yin Jian replied softly. Her soft voice made Ce have the urge to drop whatever he was doing and run over to press her down on the bed. You're going to the Amazon? Ce asked dully. Yin Jian answered again. It was not surprising that Ce knew that she was going to the Amazon forest. Lone Wolf would definitely listen to Yun Jian and pass the message to Mad Dragon when he got back. Mad Dragon was originally a member of Ce's and Hun Group. Even if he left in Hun Group, he would definitely tell the truth to Ce after finding out about the relationship between Ce and Yun Jian. Why didn't you ask me to go to the Amazon forest? Why did you ask Mad Dragon to come along? Under Mu Ying and Mu Shuang's curious gaze, Ce's words came from the other end of the phone and were heard clearly by everyone present. The domineering voice with a hint of sweetness almost made Mu Shuang clap. Chapter 1385. Mu Shuang loved the feeling of pairing someone as perfect as Yun Jian with a man who was equally perfect. She did not say a word, but her hands were already clasped together, like she was a witness who was about to witness the birth of a perfect couple. For some reason, Yun Jian detected a hint of hostility in Si Yi's words when she heard Si Yi's words. It was the kind of strong and possessive smell of gunpowder. It was similar to the gunpowder left behind from a rocket launcher she used to play with. "You don't have to come since you're so busy," Yun Jian said in the next second after pressing her lips together. Just as Yun Jian said that, Si Yi's muffled voice came from the other end. "Xiao Jian, you're being naughty again when I'm not around these few days? I'll teach you a lesson when I get back." The word take care of didn't sound like a normal way of taking care of someone. It sounded more like the tone of a couple flirting. There was also a sense of longing that made one's imagination run wild. Mu Shuang grabbed a pillow and buried her head in it when she heard that. She did not hear what Si Yi said to Yun Jian. She was still young. She did not want to get a needle's eye. Yun Jian's cheeks were obviously flushed. After the silence, she continued. "I'm going back to Longmen City now. Talk to you later." "Okay," Si Yi replied with a muffled reply. Yun Jian's cheeks were slightly flushed. This made Mu Ying a little surprised. It was obvious that Si Yi was not satisfied on the other end. When Yun Jian was about to hang up, she suddenly told Si Yi, "I'll wait for you to come back." After that, she hung up the phone and stood up. Wow, sister and sister's husband have such a good relationship. Mu Shuang, who had buried her head in the pillow, raised her head and clapped, blinking her eyes mischievously. Yun Jian didn't have the strength to defend herself at all. Yun Jian blushed and then said to Mu Ying and Mu Shuang, "I'm leaving first." Then she picked up her school bag and walked out of the door. Hee, sister is blushing. After Yun Jian left, Mu Shuang smiled at Mu Ying. Yun Jian did not hear what she said. The bus ride from Min City to Longmen City took about an hour or two. It had been a month since she returned to Longmen City. When Yun Jian arrived, it was just past 9 in the evening. Qin Yiru was still at work. Qin Yiru had quit her job for a while and had been a housewife at home for a long time. However, she suddenly felt that there was no social zone to be a housewife at home. If one did not go out, one would not know the outside world at all. In addition, she stayed at home, and her children had gone to school. Although she would go out to train, she did not know many people and had nowhere to go. Although Mrs. Yang and Qin Yiru got along quite well previously, it was unrealistic for her to be with Mrs. Yang all the time. Considering her social circle, Qin Yiru went to look for another job. This time, Qin Yiru found a job as a florist. A monthly salary of 800 yuan was considered pretty good for a florist in 1999. It was not like being a floor sweeper in Yun Jian's new cruise. Most importantly, it was quite relaxing to be a florist, so Qin Yiru was working in the florist now. The florist's employees were mostly middle-aged women in their 30s or 40s. It was the biggest florist in Longmen City and occupied a large area. Qin Yiru was chatting with a woman of her age who was arranging flowers. This woman, who was the same age as her, came from a decent family. Like her, she was also looking for a social circle. However, the difference was that the woman was dressed rather fashionably, while Qin Yiru was dressed in street clothes. The woman did not know about Qin Yiru's family background. The woman was Lu Shan, a local. She had a son who was in his second year of high school. When parents stood together, it was inevitable that they would talk about their children. It was the same for Lu Shan. "Yiru, I heard that your child just finished his middle school exams. Which high school did your child get into in Longmen City?" Lu Shan looked at Qin Yiru and asked with confidence. Parents in Longmen City liked to speak with results. Whoever's child got into a good high school would have a bright future ahead of them. Those who did not have good results or could not get into a good high school would be seen as mediocre for the rest of their lives. The scum of society. "My daughter got into Min City's military school," Qin Yiru said with a smile. "What? A girl got into a military school? Yiru, you're just fooling around with your daughter? Shouldn't a girl get into a good high school and find a stable job after graduation and marry into a good family? What's your daughter thinking? Why aren't you persuading her?" When Lu Shan heard this, she was surprised for a moment, and then a series of words came out. "I'm the one who wants to get into a military school. My mom has never objected to me choosing the path I like." A pretty female voice came from outside the door. Yun Jian was seen walking in with her backpack. She spoke faintly, her pretty face drawing gasps of admiration from the shop's employees. It was only when she came to Lu Shan that Yun Jian smiled faintly and said softly, "One has to pursue one's dreams. If one blindly chooses to do things one doesn't want to do, there will be more beggars begging on the streets." Lu Shan was the kind of person who judged a child's success based on their results. Under her education, her son was finally admitted to the worst school in the normal high school, but she was very proud of it. She was proud because there were many children from other families who could only get into vocational high schools. However, Lu Shan's face froze when she heard what Yun Jian said. Chapter 1386. Mom, what time do you get off work? While Lu Shan's expression stiffened, Yun Jian had already come to Qin Yiru and asked her softly, "It's 10:30. There's still an hour and a half to go. Xiao Jian, go home first. I'll make lunch for you later." Qin Yiru said as she went to Yun Jian with a bouquet of untrimmed flowers. She put the flowers down and circled around Yun Jian before Qin Yiru commented with a frown, "You didn't get tanner from the military training this month, but you've gotten thinner. I'll buy more meat for you to nourish your body today." Qin Yiru said worriedly. Her daughter was already skinny, but after a month of military training, she had gotten even thinner. Qin Yiru's heart ached for her daughter. "Mom, I didn't lose weight. I weighed myself when I came back and I gained a catty," Yun Jian said as she rubbed Qin Yiru's slightly rough hand. In fact, Yun Jian had really gained weight. Height and weight were measured at the beginning and end of military training. Qin Yiru thought that Yun Jian had gotten thinner, but this was only Qin Yiru's opinion as a mother. She thought that it was impossible for Yun Jian not to lose weight after going to the military school for a month. "You're still too skinny. You have to nourish your body," Qin Yiru said as she held Yun Jian's hand and patted the back of Yun Jian's hand. Yun Jian and Qin Yiru were talking and neglected Lu Shan. This made Lu Shan even more displeased. How can there be a month of military training? Isn't it usually 7 days? Lu Shan asked Qin Yiru and glared at Yun Jian as she spoke. "My daughter is studying in the military school. The military school's military training lasts a month," Qin Yiru explained to Lu Shan with a smile as she patted Yun Jian's hand. The manager of the florist came in from the front door. The manager of the flower shop was quite young. She was only in her 30s. It was said that the manager, the woman named Wen Min, had opened the shop when she was in her 20s. It had been more than a decade since she opened it, growing from a small florist shop to the biggest one in Longmen City. Wen Min was no doubt a capable person. Wen Min came in from outside and went to Qin Yiru to tell Qin Yiru and Lu Shan, "Don't be in a hurry to leave after work. I'll treat all the employees to lunch at the restaurant nearby. If you have family members at home who need you to go home to cook lunch, you can call your family members over for lunch." Wen Min was a very gracious manager. Considering that many of the employees in the store needed to rush home to cook lunch for their children or husbands, she simply asked the employees in the store to call their families over for lunch. Wen Min was surprised to see Yun Jian before she turned to ask Qin Yiru, "Is this your daughter? She's really pretty. Remember to bring her over for lunch later," Wen Min said, and left after exchanging a few pleasantries with Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru did not refuse. Since the manager had said so, Qin Yiru could only tell Yun Jian, "Xiao Jian, go sit on the bench over there for a while. Come have lunch with me later." There was no one at home since the children were in school, so Qin Yiru told Yun Jian. Yun Jian went to sit on the bench after listening to Qin Yiru and took out the weapons books Muing gave her to read from her bag. Although she already knew all these weapons like the back of her hand, she had used all of them before. Whether it was planes, tanks, or cannons, the introduction in the books was more comprehensive, and the author of each book had a different introduction to the weapons. Just as she was engrossed in the books, a sarcastic voice rang beside her. "Yo, you're still reading? What are you reading?" "What? World's Famous Guns? You're a girl. Can you understand this kind of book?" It was Lu Shan. Lu Shan had thought that she did not have a sense of presence in front of Yun Jian just now, so she had come over to teach her a lesson. so she spoke in a sarcastic tone. She had thought that Yun Jian was reading books related to studying, and that Yun Jian's grades were poor. So she wanted to come over and ask if Yun Jian's grades were worthy of the word reading. She did not expect Yun Jian to be reading books related to weapons. Just as Lu Shan spoke, something that shocked her even more rang out. Yun Jian answered faintly, I can understand it. It's just that it's different from actually using it. The author of this book doesn't know enough about guns. As soon as he said this, Lu Shan immediately exclaimed, From what you're saying, could it be that you've actually operated these guns? Chapter 1387. Yun Jian's words left Lu Shan's mouth agape, slightly stunned. When she regained her senses, Lu Shan continued, How could a teenage girl like you have touched a real gun? What's with the latest gun? Don't tell me you've touched one in your dreams. You're saying that these guns are outdated. Ha! At this point, Lu Shan could not help but add, The person who wrote this book has studied it thoroughly. The person who wrote the book had done his research. How could he not know about handguns? How could a little girl like you be spouting nonsense? I see that your mother is usually serious and proper. Why is a little girl like you full of nonsense? Lu Shan walked over to lecture Yun Jian. And now, she had indeed achieved her goal. Catching the chance, Lu Shan lectured Yun Jian fervently. With that, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Yun Jian ignored Lu Shan. She walked over and zipped up her bag, holding the book in one hand and the bag in the other. Then she walked to the bench on the other side and sat down. She put down her bag, flipped open the book, and continued reading. She moved to another spot. But she did not bother with the talkative middle-aged woman. Some of the female staff around them saw this, and covered their mouths in amusement. This young lady is interesting. A female staff chuckled, and turned to look at where Qin Yiru was a distance away. She then called out to the woman who had gone far away. Miss Qin, I'm sorry, Miss Qin. Yiru, your daughter is interesting. Qin Yiru did not fully understand her shout, and did not react for a while. Lu Shan stomped her feet angrily, and walked toward Yun Jian. However, just as Lu Shan took 2 steps toward Yun Jian, there was a sound from the florist's entrance. A man's voice called out to Lu Shan. Mom, I'm not feeling well today, so I took the day off. My younger sister insisted on looking for you, so I brought her here. Lu Shan had a son and a daughter. Her son was in his 2nd year of high school, and her daughter was only 4.5 years old. Her mother-in-law was taking care of her at home. Hearing her son's voice, Lu Shan hurriedly turned around and saw her son, Ningsheng, standing there impatiently. Mom! Mom! Her daughter, little Yuan, ran over and ran into Lu Shan's arms. It was still a school day. Ningsheng had taken the day off not because he was not feeling well, but because he had agreed to go shopping with his girlfriend. He had brought his younger sister, little Yuan, here to cover up his actions. However, Ningxing did not expect to see such a scene. A young girl around the age of 16 lowered her head slightly, her long and narrow eyelashes fluttering up and down. She sat quietly on the rest bench, quiet, but so beautiful that no one could ignore her existence. Ningxing's restless mood immediately turned for the better. Mom, what's the work? I'll do it for you. Ningxing hurried to Lu Shan, wanting to show off in front of Yun Jian. So he spoke to Lu Shan proactively. I'll get off work soon, so I'm almost done with my work. Lu Shan said and placed little Yuan on the floor. She glared at Yun Jian before patting little Yuan's hand and telling her, You're right. Go play with that big sister over there. Be good. She's very nice. She'll play with you. Lu Shan knew that her daughter, little Yuan, liked to wreak havoc, so she revealed a sinister smile. Sure enough, little Yuan quickly ran over and said to Yun Jian, Big sister, I'll play with you. As she spoke, little Yuan grabbed Yun Jian and placed her bag beside her without asking for her permission. Her bag was unzipped as she had changed books just now. When little Yuan grabbed the bag, all the things inside fell out. Lu Shan thought that her scheme had succeeded. She looked up and saw the things that fell out of Yun Jian's bag with her son. In addition to a few weapon books, there were more than 20 butterfly knives, as well as various blades and daggers. She thought that since Yun Jian was a girl, she would definitely have some girly things in her bag. She did not expect that Yunjian's bag would be filled with knives. Chapter 1388. Lu Shan was stunned because she thought that Yunjian's bag must be filled with books related to learning. Therefore, she had asked her daughter, little Yuan, to knock over Yunjian's bag. She thought that Yunjian's bag was either filled with books related to learning, or those weapons books that she used to put on and act. However, Lu Shan had never expected that Yunjian's bag would be filled with all sorts of butterfly knives, razor blades, and daggers. Moreover, there was a whole bunch of them. What was she trying to do? Kill someone? She was just a girl. Although she had been admitted to the military academy, she was just a girl. Why would her bag be filled with all sorts of small knives instead of books related to learning? This Lu Shan was stunned at the moment. Lu Shan's son, Ning Sheng, was stunned as well. When Ning Sheng first saw Yunjian, he thought that Yunjian was just a gentle and quiet girl. He thought that Yunjian was the kind of girl who would follow the path of life and listen to her parents, study hard, and get into high school. When Yunjian was reading the books earlier, he thought that Yunjian was looking at the learning material. He even had the illusion that he was in love with Yunjian. However, he had never expected that Yunjian's bag would be filled with knives. Not just one. They were all knives. Just when Ning Sheng was extremely shocked, Lu Shan's astonished voice had already come. She shouted in a panic, "Oh my God! You're a girl. It's normal for you to have books on weapons in your bag. Why aren't there any textbooks in your bag? There's only a black pen. Everything else is knives. Why are you so weird, little girl?" Lu Shan's screams quickly attracted the attention of the other employees in the florist. Qin Yiru was also attracted by Lu Shan's screams. She saw that her daughter Yunjian's bag had been overturned, and that it was filled with all sorts of knives. "Oh my God! Everyone come and take a look. Yiru, your daughter's bag is filled with knives." Those who didn't know better would think that he was going to kill someone. Look. Lu Shan's shouts continued unabated. After the commotion, even the manager of the flower shop, when Min came back, Yunjian lowered her eyes. Lu Shan was still hooting. "Pick it up." Just as Lu Shan's long-winded words continued, Yunjian's faint voice suddenly sounded. Hearing this, everyone present was stunned. Lu Shan was also stunned. She didn't expect that Yunjian would actually shout at her daughter, little Yuan, to pick up the knife that had fallen over. Lu Shan's little daughter, little Yuan, who loved to cause trouble, pretended not to hear Yunjian's words. She even pulled Yunjian's bag and shook out the last thing in Yunjian's bag. Hee, fun. Lu Shan's daughter, little Yuan, even laughed out loud. Then, she patted Yunjian's bag and tossed it to the ground. "Pick it up." Yunjian raised her voice. She frowned and suddenly raised her voice. Her shout frightened Lu Shan's daughter, little Yuan, so much so that she trembled and burst into tears. This bag was the one that Qin Yiru had bought for her. When Qin Yiru saw this, she was about to go up and help Lu Shan's daughter, little Yuan, pick up her bag when she was stopped by Yunjian. "I was just about to test the power of these knives. Are you guys trying to challenge my limits?" Yunjian said casually, but the words that came out of her mouth made one's hair stand on end. I'll pick it up. Lu Shan was shocked. She was afraid that Yunjian would really do something to her daughter. So she quickly squatted down to pick up the knives one by one, and put them back into the bag. Lu Shan was picking up the knives, but her attention was still on Yunjian. Qin Yiru went to Yunjian worriedly. Qin Yiru asked Yunjian worriedly, "Xiaojian, 2 or 3 knives are enough. Why did you bring so many?" Hearing Qin Yiru's question, the employees around them, including the florist manager, when men were stunned. What did she mean by 2 or 3 knives are enough? Was this how she as a mother should educate her child? In spite of it, what came next shocked them even more. Yunjian's red lips curled up as she told Qin Yiru with a smile. "My friend collected these 21 butterfly knives and gave them to me." What kind of friend had such a hobby? Collecting butterfly knives as gifts. Chapter 1389. Your friend, male or female, actually gave you a knife? When Min looked at Yunjian in shock, She did not mean any harm. She was just a little shocked. Yun Jian glanced at Wen Min. She heard from Qin Yiru that Wen Min was a very kind person. Although she was the owner and manager of the flower shop, she was never harsh on her employees. She would even treat her employees for a meal, and she would pay for all the expenses. Considering that the employees in the shop were all women in their 30s and 40s, who had to rush home to cook for their children or husbands. Wen Min even asked the employees to invite their families over for a meal. There were not many managers like this in this day and age. It could be said that they were extremely rare. She's a girl. She's my best friend. Yun Jian's red eyes widened slightly as she replied to Wen Min. Yun Jian's expression was very serious when she spoke. It did not seem like she was joking. At this time, Lu Shan quickly picked up all the knives that her daughter had scattered on the ground. Lu Shan stood up straight. She had been watching Yun Jian's every move. Now that she heard Yun Jian's words, Lu Shan did not wait for Wen Min to speak and spoke first. What friends of life and death. What kind of ups and downs can you guys go through at this age? I'm afraid you guys haven't even stepped out of society yet. How can you be my best friend? Young people, you should be more realistic when you speak. Lu Shan had ordered her daughter to flip through Yun Jian's bag. She thought that she had the upper hand in front of Yun Jian. However, she did not expect Yun Jian to threaten her with such a tone. Lu Shan loved her daughter very much, so she quickly rushed over to help Yun Jian pick up the knife. She was afraid that Yun Jian would do something to her daughter. Lu Shan's tone was sarcastic, but the people around them could hear the displeasure she felt toward Yun Jian in her words. Yun Jian ignored her. Therefore, the atmosphere quickly became gloomy. It's time to get off work. Go pack up and go to the restaurant. Everyone can go for lunch. When Min finally felt that the atmosphere was not good, so she suggested. Hearing Wen Min's words, everyone agreed. Lu Shan also felt that it was boring, so she took her son and daughter to the restaurant first. Mom, let's go, Yun Jian said to Qin Yiru as she stood up and zipped up her bag. I'll go wash my hands first. Qin Yiru nodded and went to the back door of the florist. The Kulaisian restaurant was just an ordinary restaurant with a large round table. There were many employees in the flower shop, so Wen Min arranged 2 tables for them. After everyone sat down, Yun Jian found that Lu Shan and her son and daughter were also sitting at the same table as her and Qin Yiru. Manager Wen Min was also sitting at the same table as him. Yun Jian lowered her eyes and didn't say anything. At the dining table, a large group of people immediately started chatting. After a while, the topic turned to the children's studies. Lu Shan was still holding a grudge. At this moment, she could not wait to present Yun Jian's poor studies in front of everyone. Of course, it was Lu Shan's own opinion that Yun Jian was poor in her studies. After all, why would a girl who was good in her studies go to a military school? Of course, her results were good when she got into a military school. But Lu Shan remembered Qin Yiru saying that Yun Jian was the default candidate for the military school. If that was the case, Yun Jian's results must be poor. My son's school is number 3 high school. He didn't do well in the middle school entrance exam, but he still got into a regular high school. Lu Shan boasted proudly before turning to ask Qin Yiru. Yiru, your daughter got into a military school. Her results should be okay, right? How's her middle school entrance exam results? Lu Shan asked. However, she thought to herself, how good can her results be if she was sent there by default? Adults at this age like to talk about their children's results. If they were good in their studies, it meant that they had a bright future ahead of them. They did not know that they were extremely stupid. My results are average. Yun Jian did not let Qin Yiru continue the conversation and answered calmly. Lu Shan's smile widened when she heard that. However, before Lu Shan's smile could widen, Yun Jian's words were heard in the next second, startling every parent present. Chapter 1390. It was just an accident. When Lu Shan first heard Yun Jian say this, she thought that Yun Jian would say an unbearably low result, so she was already pressing her lips together, ready to laugh out loud after Yun Jian announced her results. However, Yun Jian said, I was just an accident and got first place in the city? First place in the city? First place in Longmen City? This result was just an accident. Lu Shan was stunned. She maintained her posture of moving her chopsticks to pick up a piece of pork trotter. She was stunned on the spot. Oh my God! First place in the city. Yiru, your daughter got first place in the city. Before Lu Shan could recover from her shock, a woman who was also a florist stood up and exclaimed at Qin Yiru. Yiru, you said that your daughter got first place in the city? Why didn't you mention it? There's more. Your daughter is so good in her studies. Why did you let her go to the military school? Why didn't you let her apply for DE High School? Our DE High School's cutoff is so high, but your daughter can do it. Can your daughter get in? She's the first in the city. Someone stood up and told Qin Yiru immediately. DE High School was a key public high school in Longmen City. The cutoff was very high, and it was also the best high school in Longmen City. This was just the objective aspect. In general, the students who graduated from DE High School were the most promising students in the eyes of their parents. Yunyi was a student of DE High School. Therefore, when the people present heard that Yunjian's cutoff was so high, their first thought was, why didn't she apply for DE High School with such good results? No one noticed that Lu Shan's face was paling bit by bit. She looked so ashamed that she was speechless. My Jianjian wants to go to the military school. She's quite talented, so I support her to choose what she wants to do. Qin Yiru chuckled with a hand over her mouth in response to the crowd. Qin Yiru was very low-key and humble. She was very kind to others and was not vain. Although she had such an excellent daughter, she never bragged about it. To be able to do this, it had to be said that people like Qin Yiru were very rare. The surrounding women sighed. Everyone felt that it was a pity that Yun Jian didn't go to the first high school with her grades. Lu Shan, who was a little ashamed just now, suddenly raised her head. That was right. Even if Yun Jian had gotten first place before, she was still the former top student of Longmen City. She was stupid to have chosen the military school. That was all in the past. Lu Shan instantly raised her head to look at Yun Jian. Then, she said to Yun Jian with a bit of confidence, "You're a girl, and you're going to the bottom of the military academy. You're not willing to go to a key high school to further your studies. Isn't that stupid?" Lu Shan's words made Yun Jian raise her eyebrows. At the bottom? Yun Jian raised her eyebrows and almost couldn't help but chuckle. When did she say that she was at the bottom of the military academy? Isn't that so? You're a girl, and you want to compete with boys in terms of strength? Do you think you can beat him? Lu Shan said in succession, and there was a strong sense of confidence in her voice. Was there a need for a girl to compete with a boy in terms of strength? Of course, it was the boys who were stronger. Just as Lu Shan finished speaking, Yun Jian took out a certificate from her pocket and placed it in front of Qin Yiru. She ignored Lu Shan directly and spoke to Qin Yiru instead. "Mom, I'm first place in the freshmen's military training this time. There are 3 freshmen who entered the elite class directly. I'm one of them while the other 2 are my friends. The school gave this certificate to me as a reward for being the first place. I can take leave and leave school anytime during classes in the future. There's no need for any reason." As she spoke, before Lu Shan and the rest could digest it, Yun Jian spoke again while they were still stunned. Chapter 1391. What Yun Jian said stunned everyone present. First of all, Yun Jian had won first place in the military training. No one present was surprised that the military school would rank students for their military training. What they did not expect, however, was that Yun Jian had won first place in the military training. That, moreover, the women present were mostly parents. To them, their children's studies were the most important. In Longmen City, being able to get into DE High School was akin to being the top scorer in ancient times to many parents. Yet, Yun Jian said that her brother had represented DE High School in the language competition and won first place in the province? For the time being, let's not talk about winning the provincial first prize, which was enough to shock people to the core. Based on the first part of the sentence, was Yun Jian's brother not Qin Yiru's son? Qin Yiru had a son, and her son had gotten into DE High School. Her daughter was so outstanding that she had won first place among the freshmen, when she had just entered the school. "Ah, Yiru, your son and daughter are so outstanding." Even the store manager, Wen Min, stood up in shock as she looked at Qin Yiru and exclaimed in bewilderment. Qin Yiru did not expect Yun Jian to blurt everything out. She was taken aback as well, only coming back to her senses after a while. "My Xiao Jian and Xiao Yi are only this good. As a mother, I'm quite happy," Qin Yiru said with a smile. "Exactly. If I had a daughter and son as good as you, I'd be over the moon." Sigh, speaking of this, I'm pissed off when I think of my disappointing son. Wen Min chimed in as well, but she was smiling at Yun Jian and Qin Yiru the entire time. There was a tinge of helplessness in her tone, but it was more genuine than anything else. Qin Yiru soon struck up a friendly conversation with the other employees in the store. Knowing that Qin Yiru's son and daughter were so outstanding, many of them took the initiative to befriend Qin Yiru. People were all like that. It wasn't surprising that they would follow whoever was outstanding. However, Yun Jian had achieved her goal. She wanted Qin Yiru to have a better life in the flower shop and make more friends. Of course, Qin Yiru's original intention of working in the flower shop was to make more friends. Lu Shan recovered from her shock. Although she was unwilling, she couldn't say anything at this moment. She could only stare blankly. In the end, Lu Shan was so angry that she nearly vomited blood. It was because his son had failed to live up to his expectations and kept staring at Yun Jian, as if he was completely infatuated with her. "So you're studying at Min City's military academy?" "I'm studying in 3rd high school. You're welcome to hang out with me." Ningxing stared straight at Yun Jian as he invited her. Ningxing had snuck out of school to go on a date with his girlfriend. However, ever since he saw Yun Jian, his heart had been hooked by Yun Jian. He even chased her all the way here and shamelessly sat down at her table. Yun Jian ignored him. At this moment, a woman at the same table pointed at the door and exclaimed, "Wow, what a handsome young man." Just as the woman finished, Yun Jian turned to look and met a pair of sharp, dark eyes that were as sharp as an eagle's. The man made his way over after meeting Yun Jian's gaze. Every movement he made as he made his way over was so cool that it was enough to make all the women in the room squeal in delight. "Whose family is this young man from? He's so handsome," another woman exclaimed. Chapter 1392. He was the only one who could accompany her, no matter where it was. Ce stared fixedly at Yun Jian, as if he wanted to bore a hole through Yun Jian. Yun Jian was a little embarrassed by Ce's words. Besides, there were so many people around. She lowered her head out of shyness when Ce grabbed her hand. Qin Yiru, who was sitting beside Yun Jian, covered her mouth and laughed silently. Qin Yiru was about to speak when Ningxing, who was sitting opposite Yun Jian and had been staring at Yun Jian, looked at Ce in disbelief. Then he asked Yun Jian, "Who is he?" It was as if they were denouncing Yun Jian for her crimes. Yun Jian heard Ningxing's words and reached out to grab Ce's large hand. Then she replied softly, "Mm." She considered that Ce was too busy, so she didn't ask Ce to accompany her to the Amazon forest. She also asked Mad Dragon to go with her, because Mad Dragon was also an assassin from Anhun. There were 3 assassins who had survived with Yun Jian from Anhun. Besides Yun Jian, Mad Dragon was one of them. Mad Dragon was also there when she was sent to the organization. So Mad Dragon knew Muing. Yun Jian knew that Mad Dragon and Muing had some feelings for each other when they were young. Although they were not even 10 years old at that time, Mad Dragon and Muing liked each other. When Muing died in place of Yun Jian, Mad Dragon was tricked out by a group of children in the organization. That was why Mad Dragon only found out about Mu Ying's death. At that time, Kuang Long was on the brink of insanity. The only thing Yun Jian knew after that was that Kuang Long killed all the people who tricked him out. Yun Jian asked Mad Dragon to wait for them in the Amazon forest because she wanted Mu Ying and Mad Dragon to meet. She didn't know that Ce would be so jealous that he sent Mad Dragon away. What Amazon forest? Speaking of which, Yiru, why is your daughter being intimate with an outsider in front of you? You have to keep a close eye on such an outstanding daughter. Don't let some riffraff kidnap her. Lu Shan had spoken with the intention of competing with Yun Jian, But now that she saw how outstanding Yun Jian was, and that her son, Ning Sheng, was interested in Yun Jian, Lu Shan wanted her son to marry such an outstanding daughter. She might be jealous, but she would be part of her family once they married her. Lu Shan was shameless. She had treated Yun Jian this way in the beginning, but when she saw that Yun Jian was good-looking, capable, and had a brother who studied in DE High School, Lu Shan thought to herself. That was how Lu Shan thought of it. She should take a look at how her son looked like. Lu Shan thought that Qin Yiru would reign in Yun Jian and the man's entanglement, but Qin Yiru ignored her and stood up to speak to Ce. Hey, you're back? Come sit beside Xiaojian. I'll find another seat. As she spoke, Qin Yiru moved away from the seat beside Yun Jian and found another seat to sit down. It was only after she was seated that Qin Yiru replied, Huh? Entangling with an outsider? Since when did my Xiaojian entangle with an outsider? As she spoke, Qin Yiru really did not know what Lu Shan was referring to as she looked around. Qin Yiru was not pretending. She really did not know. Lu Shan's face darkened when she heard what Lu Shan said. There. Aren't they entangling with an outsider? Lu Shan pointed at Ce and Yun Jian exasperatedly. It was then that Qin Yiru realized that Lu Shan was referring to Ce. Chapter 1393. In Qin Yiru's heart, she had long treated Ce as family. To Qin Yiru, Ce was family. Therefore, Qin Yiru did not react when Lu Shan said that Yun Jian was messing around with an outsider. When she heard Qin Yiru say that Ce was her chosen son-in-law, and that Ce was family, Lu Shan nearly vomited blood in anger. Lu Shan thought that Qin Yiru would realize that her daughter was messing around with a man after what she said just now. Who knew that she would say, Yiru, are you serious? Your daughter is still so young, and she already has a chosen son-in-law? When Min asked in disbelief, taking a few more glances at Ce. Ce was handsome. His fair complexion coupled with his murderous eyes made it impossible for anyone to ignore his presence. That was all it took to describe his handsomeness. When Min asked out of pure curiosity, since she had asked this, when Min couldn't help but ask another question. Of course, her tone was still mixed with the weight of a joke. Haha, don't tell me that you've arranged a marriage for your daughter? When Min's words sparked a conversation between everyone and Qin Yiru chuckled with a hand over her mouth and replied to Wen Min. Of course not. I advocate for children to love freely. Look, my Xiaojian and Ae are interested in each other. I can't stop them from being together, can I? Ae's a rare good kid. Qin Yiru was not an extremely old-fashioned person. To her, it was fine as long as Yun Jian was happy. Lu Shan was about to vomit blood when she heard what Qin Yiru said at the end. Lu Shan had never expected Qin Yiru to be so optimistic about her daughter's relationship. She was still thinking of having her son abduct such an outstanding daughter from Qin Yiru's family. Ce had already taken the seat that Qin Yiru vacated for him. When he turned to look, he could already tell what Lu Shan, the old hag, was up to. Since he came in, he could feel Ning Sheng's gaze sizing up his Xiaojian, as if his life depended on it. Ce did not let go of Yun Jian's hand even after he took his seat. His other hand reached into his trouser pocket to take out a large booklet and placed it on the round table before spinning the turntable to move it to Qin Yiru. This is my marriage certificate with Xiaojian. It's registered in country. We're real. He and Xiaojian were real now, they were real. So he did not mind letting more people know about it. Ce said as he turned the booklet to Qin Yiru. No one expected Ce to do this, so everyone stopped what they were doing when they heard Ce's mellow voice. This is... Lu Shan was stunned. She thought that Ce and Yun Jian were just a couple, and did not expect Ce to take out his marriage certificate. Aren't you still underage? Lu Shan did not even realize that there was a marriage certificate in country R. She only knew that Yun Jian and Ce were married. It's a marriage certificate in country R. Xiaojian and I are husband and wife now, so we're protected by the law. Ce cut Lu Shan off, speaking to Qin Yiru. Everyone thought that Qin Yiru would scold Yun Jian and Ce. After all, It was one thing to admit that Yun Jian and Ce were together, but it was another thing to register their marriage, as it was protected by the law. Who would have thought that Qin Yiru would clap her hands excitedly? She opened her mouth openly and shamelessly under everyone's gaze, saying, "Great! We've even registered our marriage. Hey, you're amazing! It'll be legal and reasonable for Xiao Jian to give birth to a grandson or granddaughter soon." Chapter 1394. Qin Yiru accidentally blurted out her true thoughts. Once Qin Yiru said it, Yun Jian's cheeks flushed instantly. Lu Shan's face darkened at the same time. Ning Sheng froze on the spot, looking at Yun Jian and Ce in disbelief. She was married? She was married. Did that mean he had no chance? Ning Sheng did not even think about what kind of person he was, and whether he was worthy of Yun Jian. Most importantly, Ning Sheng had a girlfriend of his own. His girlfriend must have left in a fit of anger at him for standing her up. While everyone was stunned, Ce raised a brow with a slight smirk and uttered words that made everyone's imagination run wild in the next second. "I'll work hard." It was a continuation of what Qin Yiru said earlier. Once he heard Ce's half-understood words, Ning Sheng's face darkened as if he had just eaten dog poop. Lu Shan's face darkened as well. "Jian Jian, we're here." Just as Yun Jian's head was about to hit the floor in embarrassment, 3 people walked into the restaurant. The person who led the way to greet Yun Jian was Chen Sini. Chen Sini shook her head at Yun Jian and ran over to grab Yun Jian's other free hand, telling her, "Yun Jian, I'm not going anywhere." "Jian Jian, you're back? When you said you were here just now, I dragged Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen over to look for you. They even said they wanted ice cream before coming over." "Heh." I directly threw away the ice cream in their hands. "Don't you think I'm amazing?" Chen Sini knew that Yun Jian was coming back today, so she asked Yun Jian, where she was on the phone just now. When she found out that Yun Jian was at the restaurant, Chen Sini happened to be nearby, so she dragged Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen over. After graduating from junior high school, everyone was admitted to different high schools. Chen Sini and her friends were still studying in Longmen City, but Yun Jian had gone to Min City. Chen Sini and her friends had just finished their military training, so they were on break now that it was school time. Yun Jian snapped out of her shyness and looked up to meet Chen Sini's gaze that said, praise me, you're tanned." Yun Jian commented quietly as she glanced at Chen Sini and her friends. "Oh, it's Sini. Are you guys playing around here too? It's been a while since I saw you. Come visit me when you're free." Qin Yiru greeted Chen Sini when she saw her. In spite of it, Chen Sini and her friends were rooted to the spot by Yun Jian's casual remark. "Aya, Jian Jian, don't be so direct." Chen Sini covered her face in disbelief. The group of people around them were attracted by Yun Jian and Chen Sini's interaction. Lu Shan and Ning Sheng looked over as well. "Oh right, Jian Jian. I heard that there are 3 people from your military school who entered the elite class directly. You're one of them. Hey, what's the benefit of entering the elite class?" Chen Sini and her friends paid close attention to anything that happened in the military school, because Yun Jian had gone to the military school. The news of Yun Jian successfully passing the military training's wilderness survival event and entering the elite class had spread like wildfire. It was not surprising that Chen Sini and her friends knew about it. Yun Jian raised a brow and turned to see Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen looking at her with anticipation. She smiled and said, "Entering the elite class means there's a chance to join the hunting school as Country Z's special forces." Yun Jian then narrowed her eyes and added, "I have to go to the hunting school." "Hunting school? What the hell is that place?" Lu Shan asked with a sullen face after hearing that. It was the kind of careless words. Just as Lu Shan finished her question, the people around them turned to look at Yun Jian in confusion. "Hunting school? Hunting? A school to catch wild animals? Why was there such a school? What kind of school was this? Why did Yun Jian have to go? To learn how to catch wild animals?" Everyone present was slightly stunned. "Master, is the hunting school you're talking about located in South America? Is it the world-famous Special Forces training base? It's said that the elimination rate is as high as 80%, and the death rate is extremely high. It's known as the true Special Forces Devil Training." Master, are you talking about that school? Zhang Xiaofeng was stunned for a moment before asking Yun Jian. Just as Zhang Xiaofeng finished his question, everyone present was stunned. Most of the people present were dutiful residents. They often talked about their children's academic results, who had a higher salary, or who married into a good family. They thought that the hunting school Yun Jian mentioned was just an ordinary school. However, no one would have thought that the hunting school Yun Jian mentioned was actually the Special Forces training base, and the death rate was extremely high. Just as they were shocked, they heard Yun Jian admit, yeah. This meant that the hunting school Yun Jian had to go to was the Special Forces training base with an extremely high death rate? Everyone present was dumbfounded. Lu Shan and Ning Sheng originally thought that Yun Jian applied for the military school to become a policewoman. However, no one would have thought that Yun Jian she actually wanted to go to such a dangerous place to train. Chapter 1395. Special Forces Training Base? The elimination rate is as high as 80%. The death rate is extremely high. You'll die. Are you kidding me? You're going to a place like that? You're a girl. Lu Shan could not help exclaiming again when she heard what Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun Jian said. You're going to a place like that? What if you die? What if you die? Ning Sheng couldn't help but cry out in alarm. When he mentioned death, Ning Sheng's body trembled. He was obviously frightened. Xiao Jianyu, you're going to a place like that? Will you really die? It's such a dangerous place. Mom won't let you go. The people around them exclaimed, but they calmed down quickly. Qin Yiru was different. Yun Jian was her daughter. Therefore, when Qin Yiru heard Yun Jian say that she was going to such a dangerous place, she stood up from the bench right away. I'd really like to meet the person who can kill me in this world. Yun Jian chuckled softly. Her words were quite arrogant, and there was a sense of arrogance in them. In spite of it, others thought that Yun Jian was extremely foolish. Pfft! Lu Shan laughed out loud. She could not hold it in, as she laughed out loud when she heard Yun Jian's arrogant words. After that, Lu Shan's lips twitched before she forced herself to hold back her laughter. Forgetting herself, she told Yun Jian again. Do you think you're a god? Do you really think you're in heaven? Ha ha ha, you'd really like to meet the person who can kill you in this world. Pfft, you're kidding me. Qin Yiru was already worried about her daughter. Now that she heard what Lu Shan said, she was even more worried. Xiao Jian, you can't go. How can there be a guarantee? Qin Yiru was genuinely worried and scared. The proudest thing in her life was having a daughter and a son. Both of them were equally important. Therefore, to Qin Yiru, nothing was more important than the safety of her daughter and son. Mom, I've never done anything stupid that would cost my life, and I've never boasted about myself. Yun Jian said to Qin Yiru solemnly, the existence that can threaten me has not been born yet. With me here, Xiao Jian will be fine no matter where she goes. Si Yi's words rang out just as Yun Jian was explaining to Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru was stunned. Just as she was about to refute Si Yi, she heard Si Yi continue. It's just a hunting school. I guarantee that if Xiao Jian really loses a strand of hair in the school, I'll blow it up. Moreover, if anything happens to Xiao Jian, I'll be there to shield her. Even if someone dies, I'll be the first to die. Si Yi told Qin Yiru with a serious look at Yun Jian. What he said was from the bottom of his heart, and everyone present could hear it. Si Yi's words touched Qin Yiru. She was right to find this son-in-law. Lu Shan, on the other hand, was displeased. After she heard what Si Yi said, she retorted at Si Yi. Blow it up? Do you think you're an armed force? Playing with gunpowder? Ha! Before Lu Shan could finish, Si Yi had already dialed Shui Ying's number, and spoke to the latter right in front of everyone. I'm sorry. Find the shortest and fattest lady who works in the same shop as my mother-in-law in Country Z. Send a fighter jet to bomb her. Everyone was dumbfounded when Si Yi finished. What? Chapter 1396. Lu Shan thought that Si Yi was just joking. She did not expect that Si Yi was telling the truth. And Si Yi said it so openly. She was the shortest and fattest woman in the shop? Women love to be beautiful, regardless of their age. Lu Shan was the same. Therefore, when she heard Ce say that she was the shortest and fattest woman in the shop, Lu Shan was stunned. When Lu Shan came back to her senses, the first thing that came to her mind was not that Ce wanted to bomb her house, but Ce actually said that she was the shortest and fattest woman in the shop. Lu Shan was stunned. She was so shocked that she couldn't even speak. The rest of them were the first to react to what Ce said. Young man, don't tell me you're serious? When Min was shocked because Ce did not seem to be lying when he spoke. Hey, child, don't mess around. Qin Yiru had heard about Ce's family background from Dongruan, and knew that Ce came from an extraordinary family. Therefore, Qin Yiru knew that Ce was telling the truth. When Lu Shan recovered from her anger, she still did not believe Ce. She even lectured Qin Yiru. Oh Yiru, is this the kind of son-in-law you want? Bombing with fighter jets? Ha ha ha, do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I don't know anything? As Lu Shan spoke, Ce's phone rang again. In spite of it, Ce pressed the answer button. Snow Eagle's voice came from the other end. Young master, the fighter jets haven't arrived yet. I've locked onto the target floor with missiles. Should we bomb it across the sea? And Han Group's influence was comparable to a country. This wasn't nonsense. As soon as he said that, everyone present was dumbfounded. The other party actually called Ce young master? It felt like it was real. No, this is real. Lu Shan was completely stunned. She stared blankly at Ce, feeling as though she was in a complete daze. Hey, don't! Qin Yiru cried out in alarm. In the past, they could still use their own power to cover up small conflicts. However, if Ce really ordered the Snow Eagle to launch a missile attack on Lu Shan's family, this was no laughing matter. It involved the country. Lu Shan was really frightened. She looked at Ce in a daze. She was really afraid that Ce was telling the truth. The next second, Lu Shan opened her mouth and begged for mercy. Don't. I was wrong. My mouth is cheap. Regardless of whether it was true or not, Lu Shan couldn't bear the blow of this possibility. There's no need to launch the missiles. Let's retreat, Yunjian said to Shuaying, who was on the other end of Ce's phone. Yes. Shuaying agreed to Yunjian faster than he agreed to Ce. As soon as he finished, he hung up on Ce. How dare Shuaying hang up on Ce when the young mistress had spoken? In the past, Shuaying would not have dared to do this, even if he was given 100 guts. Lu Shan did not know why, but when she heard the word retreat, she felt like she had escaped death, even though she did not believe that Ce would launch a missile attack on her house. Lu Shan sat in her seat and heaved a sigh of relief. Ce had never objected to Yunjian's decisions, so the matter passed just like that. When Chen Sini and the others arrived, Yunjian told Qin Yiru that she wanted to go shopping with Chen Sini and the others after a few bites. Ce followed Yunjian and even held Yunjian's small hand with his large palm. Chapter 1397. Ce had left what he was doing and ran back to Longmen City. The reason was simple. Yunjian had asked Mad Dragon instead of him to go to the Amazon forest. Ce had gone to the Kosha mercenaries to reprimand Mad Dragon before coming here to look for Yunjian to declare his sovereignty. Yunjian had to wait for Mu Ying here before heading to the Amazon forest. She had to make stops along the way with Mu Ying. Ce was currently at his busiest and could not spare any time, so he returned to an Hun group after coming to look for Yunjian before heading to the Amazon forest to meet Yunjian. Ce had even brought his and Yunjian's booklet with him after he left. Country R's marriage certificate was a huge booklet, different from the small booklet in Country Z. However, Ce brought it with him at all times. Yunjian facepalmed. Ce had been itching to let everyone in the world know that they were married recently. He would even show off their marriage certificate in Country R from time to time. He was so happy that he did not feel tired at all. If Adam heard about this, he would probably grumble on the spot. How did you become such a young master? Ce left in a private helicopter that day while Yunjian waited for Mu Ying in Longmen City the next day. However, Mu Ying had Lung Hanja following behind her. Lung Hanja insisted on coming after Mu Ying. There was no way to shake him off. Yun Jian was not too surprised to see Lung Hanja. Not only did Lung Hanja come alone, he brought a friend with him. Lung Hanja did not expect his friend to bring a few friends along as well. As they went back and forth, they seemed to have formed a team. Yun Jian was not too happy about it. She was already annoyed that Lung Hanja had tagged along, and now he had brought a friend with him. His friend had brought a group of people as well. This is my friend Guo. He also graduated from our military academy. He was our senior last year. He is now studying at the police academy. He will be a police officer in the future. Lung Hanja introduced Guo to everyone. Yun Jian blinked uninterested. Mu Ying crossed her arms in front of her chest, looking equally upset. Go back. Don't follow me and Yun Jian anymore. After Lung Hanja introduced everyone on his side to Yun Jian and Mu Ying said to him coldly. It was obvious that Mu Ying did not want Lung Hanja to tag along as well. What's wrong with you? Brother Hanja deliberately followed you to protect you. It's been so many years. It's no secret that Brother Hanja likes you. But what about you? Why are you? Before she could finish, Lung Hanja interrupted. Lung Lingling, if you don't want to come with us, then go back yourself. Lung Hanja said coldly. When the girl called Lung Lingling heard Lung Hanja's words, she snorted angrily and purposely raised her voice. Lung Lingling was Lung Hanja's younger sister. She tagged along because she liked Lung Hanja's friend Guo. All of you shut up. Yun Jian suddenly scolded just as the group was talking noisily. Everyone stopped what they were doing and talking when they heard Yun Jian's scolding. However, Yun Jian continued with a tone that made it impossible for anyone to underestimate her. It's your business whether or not you want to follow us and go to the Amazon forest. However, if anything happens to any of you, I'll only remind you that Mu Ying and I will only watch from the sidelines. So do as you please. Chapter 1398. Yun Jian made it clear. She would not stop them if they wanted to tag along. She did not have the right to stop them. After all, they were her legs. However, Yun Jian was not responsible for their safety. They had never experienced how dangerous the Amazon forest was. However, Yun Jian, who had survived in the Amazon forest for 6 months in her previous life, knew that it was not a place for humans. Even Yun Jian barely survived in the Amazon forest. It did not matter if it was the wild animals or the swamp that they encountered during their military training on the uninhabited island. The Amazon forest could not be compared to the small waves on the uninhabited island. What do you mean by that? F***ck, don't make it sound like the earth would stop spinning without you, alright? Seriously, there are more and more people who think highly of themselves. They don't even know what they're thinking. Lung Lingling was taken aback by Yun Jian's reprimand. She was stunned for a moment before she spoke up after recovering from the shock. After saying that, Lung Lingling turned her head to look at Guo, whom she admired. Brother Xiao, am I right? Before Lung Lingling could hear Guo's reply, Lung Hanja yelled at Lung Lingling again. Lung Lingling, if you continue to mess around, you can go home right now. This was the second time Lung Hanja, as Lung Lingling's brother, had spoken to her in such a loud tone. Lung Lingling was furious. Let's go. Yun Jian ignored Lung Lingling. She spoke to Mu Ying and left first. Lung Hanja, Lung Lingling, and the rest followed Yun Jian, and Mu Ying from the car to the plane to Country G. In other words, Lung Hanja and Lung Lingling did not know the way and followed Yun Jian. The Amazon forest was also known as the Amazon rainforest. It was located in the Amazon basin in South America. The rainforest spanned across 8 countries and took up 20% of the world's forest area. It was the largest rainforest in the world with the most species. Yun Jian would usually depart from Country G when she went to the Amazon forest, because Country G had helicopters that could directly reach the entrance of the Amazon forest. The other 8 countries were all around the Amazon forest, but Yun Jian was more used to setting off from Country G. Lung Hanja and the others followed them all the way until they arrived at the place where they took the helicopter to the Amazon forest in Country G. Public security in Country G was generally good, but there was no lack of places with poor public security. The helicopter that goes directly to the Amazon forest is rented from the local people. And the number of helicopters here is relatively small, so usually there is a queue for a helicopter. At this moment, Yun Jian and Muing were waiting in line, followed by Lung Hanja and a group of people. It's so hot. It's almost our turn. Is the plane here yet? Lung Lingling fanned her face and asked lazily, bear with it. It's coming, it's coming. They're finally here. A guy in the same group responded. They saw a helicopter being pulled over by a large truck from afar. Hey, you guys wait for 2 more hours. The pilot of this helicopter got into an argument with armed people and was shot twice. He's been sent to the hospital, and the next helicopter will arrive in 2 more hours. Just then, a staff member walked over and waved at Yun Jian and the others, speaking in Chinese. The staff member was from Country Z. Huh? 2 more hours? Lung Lingling was dumbfounded when she heard that. Is this helicopter empty? No one's piloting it? Yun Jian asked. Hearing Yun Jian's words, the staff member paused for a moment, then smiled naturally. Yes. Then, the staff member joked with Yun Jian. Little girl, do you want to drive the helicopter to the Amazon forest yourself? Heh. It was impossible. The staff member didn't finish his sentence. Give me the helicopter, I'll rent it. Yun Jian took out a card from her pocket and threw it to the staff member, then walked towards the helicopter. What's wrong with you? The pilot isn't here, and you still want to rent the helicopter. Do you even know how to drive it? Lung Lingling, who was standing behind, couldn't help but scold Yun Jian. Hey little girl, you can't just drive the helicopter if you don't know how to drive it. Also, do you know the coordinates of the Amazon forest? The staff member reacted and wanted to chase after Yun Jian, who had already walked to the helicopter. However, he saw Yun Jian walk to the side of the helicopter and jump onto the helicopter door. Under the gaze of the surrounding people, she walked to the cockpit and started the helicopter within 3 seconds. The helicopter instantly flapped its wings and floated up, making a loud noise. Yun Jian walked to the helicopter door under everyone's horrified gaze and put down the rope. She called out to Muing, come up. She really knew how to drive a helicopter. This teenage girl really knew how to drive a helicopter. Chapter 1399. Muing went over and grabbed the rope that Yun Jian had let down from the helicopter in a few steps. Grabbing the rope nimbly, she climbed up to the side door of the helicopter from the ground. No matter how much the staff tried to dissuade and disbelieve that Yun Jian knew how to fly a helicopter, Yun Jian's actions just now and the fact that she actually knew how to fly a helicopter had completely shocked the staff. After Muing jumped onto the helicopter with the rope, she stood at the side door of the helicopter and looked down at Lung Hanja, Lung Lingling, Guo and the others. In the end, Muing locked her gaze on Lung Hanja. The helicopter was already 3 meters above the ground. Unless Yun Jian or Muing let down the rope and Lung Hanja and the others could climb onto the helicopter, Lung Hanja and the others could only get onto the helicopter. However, when the helicopter was 3 meters above the ground, it was obvious that Yun Jian did not intend to travel with Lung Hanja and the others. Hey, all right, we know that you can fly a helicopter. Why aren't you lowering the helicopter? Quick. It's so hot that I'm about to peel off my skin. It's so hot, hurry up and let us sit on it. Lung Lingling was stunned, but she did not think too much about it. Instead, she waved at Yun Jian and asked Yun Jian to lower the helicopter so that they could sit on it. Let's part ways here. Yun Jian gave a simple reply. Yun Jian did not say anything else. Lung Lingling was taken aback by Yun Jian's words before she broke out in a torrent of abuse. Lung Lingling began to yell at Yun Jian. Muing stared at Lung Hanja. She pursed her lips and said, I'm no longer the same person as before. I'm no longer the Muing of the past. I've told you this more than once. Now, I'm telling you the same thing. Don't come to me again. We're not from the same world. Muing had told Lung Hanja more than once that they were not from the same world. She told him not to come looking for her anymore. However, every time she said that, Lung Hanja would. How are we not from the same world? There's There's nothing in this world that can stop us from being together. I won't give up. I won't give up. Lung Hanja was still yelling at the sky, refusing to admit defeat, even when Yun Jian flew the helicopter dozens of meters away. Mu Ying had rejected Lung Hanja's feelings for her more than once. She knew that Lung Hanja had feelings for her, but she was not the real Mu Ying. She could not merge herself with the real Mu Ying like Yun Jian. However, no matter what Mu Ying did, she could not get rid of Lung Hanja. This made Mu Ying feel guilty. Yun Jian and Mu Ying arrived at the border of the Amazon forest. The helicopter could enter the Amazon forest, but it was rented. Yun Jian did not plan to fly the helicopter directly into the Amazon forest. The helicopter stopped at the entrance. It was surrounded by the forest. The reason why it was called the entrance was because there were people stationed here. The staff who were in charge of the helicopter's navigation were also here. If they registered at the scenic spot, they could even have a tour guide to bring them around the Amazon forest. Of course, the tour guide would only bring them to a safe area. It was impossible for them to go deep into the Amazon forest. When Yun Jian returned the helicopter to the staff was shocked. Why was their helicopter driven by a young lady? By the time they reacted, Yun Jian was already far away. Yun Jian had just walked to Mu Ying and was about to pack her things with Mu Ying to enter the Amazon forest when a clear male voice came from behind. The male voice stopped Yun Jian and Mu Ying in time. Chapter 1400. We're not going with a group. Yun Jian immediately denied the guy's words. She didn't even look at the guy's face before she spoke. Hearing Yun Jian's simple words, the guy was stunned, but he didn't give up. Instead, he walked to Yun Jian and Mu Ying. Then, he looked at Yun Jian and Mu Ying. The guy spoke again as if he was trying to persuade Yun Jian and Mu Ying to agree with him. It's not good for the two of you to enter the Amazon forest by yourselves. The Amazon forest isn't an ordinary forest. There are ferocious beasts inside. You might get into trouble if you go by yourselves. I heard that a group of people went in 2 days ago, and they haven't come out yet. It's dangerous for the two of you to enter the Amazon forest without a group. Why don't you come with us? You can take care of each other. Also, we're all from country Z. Hee, it's rare to meet people from the same country here. The guy said a lot of things, but all he got was Yun Jian's rejection. I'm not going. Ren Zhongwei, can you do it? You can't even persuade 2 girls. You don't even have that bit of charm. What are you doing? Another guy's voice came from the side. The other guy said as he walked towards Yun Jian and Mu Ying. Ladies, I'm Dan Qingjie. We're planning to enter the Amazon forest as a group. Ren Zhongwei told you guys just now that we're short of 3 people. There are 6 of our country Z compatriots in the group. Do you guys want to come along? The guy who called himself Dan Qingjie was a handsome young guy. He was about 19 years old and looked very bright and handsome. It was not hard to tell that Dan Qingjie and his group were university students who came to the Amazon forest to play. Also, one could tell that Dan Qingjie and his group were wearing branded clothes from head to toe. Even the watches on their hands were worth more than 5,000. 5,000 was considered extremely expensive in terms of the price of watches in 1999. Just by looking at Dan Qingjie's group, it was not hard to tell that they were all university students. Usually, if a university student could come to a place like the Amazon forest to play, they would need to have a rich family to do so. But these were not in Yun Jian's consideration. After Dan Qingjie told Ren Zhongwei that Yun Jian and Mu Ying were going to the Amazon alone, and that it was quite dangerous, Yun Jian started to pack her bag. She ignored Dan Qingjie and took out a butterfly knife, 2 daggers and many blades from her bag. After making sure that these things could be used normally, she put them in her bag. Ren Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie were just talking about Yun Jian and Mu Ying going into the Amazon forest by themselves. It was very dangerous for the 2 girls, so they advised them to team up with them. However, when they saw Yun Jian take out a few knives from her bag, Ren Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie both took a deep breath and swallowed their saliva. You're a girl. How can you bring so many dangerous things? Dan Qingjie was stunned. At that moment, Yun Jian had picked up her bag again and asked Muing to follow her to the entrance of the Amazon forest. She completely ignored Dan Qingjie and Ren Zhongwei's reaction. Yun Jian and Muing were just about to walk to the entrance of the Amazon forest when Yun Jian suddenly saw the tour guide's introduction in Country G's language. Yun Jian frowned slightly when she saw the introduction of the tour group. She suddenly pulled Muing and turned around to say to Dan Qingjie and Ren Zhongwei, "We'll join your group." Chapter 1401. After Yun Jian finished speaking, Dan Qingjie and Ren Zhongwei both looked up at her and said in unison, "Really? You guys are really willing to join us?" Yun Jian's previous attitude was really too cold, so it gave Dan Qingjie and Ren Zhongwei an inexplicable illusion that Yun Jian would not join them. So when they heard Yun Jian's words, Dan Qingjie and Ren Zhongwei felt like they had misheard. "Lead the way." At this moment, Yun Jian nodded and said. Muing did not understand why Yun Jian wanted to follow the tour group halfway. After all, following a tour group was very time-consuming and inconvenient for them. But Muing did not ask Yun Jian. Just as they joined Ren Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie's group, Yun Jian and Muing saw the other 4 people from Z country other than Ren Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie. Among the 4 people from Z country, 3 of them came with Ren Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie. As for the other more mature woman, she came alone. She also just joined the tour group and met Dan Qingjie and the others. When this more mature woman saw Yun Jian and Muing, she greeted Yun Jian and Muing first. "More friends here? Hey, I'm He Liqing. You can call me Sister Qingqing. Don't be shy." The mature woman who called herself He Liqing was obviously a beautiful and gentle big sister. But there was also the air of a mature sister in her gentleness. At least Yun Jian had a good impression of this woman called He Liqing. "I'm Muing." Muing replied briefly to He Liqing. "Yun Jian." Yun Jian's self-introduction was even more brief. "Welcome to the group, little girls," an 18 or 19-year-old college girl, who was with Dan Qingjie, and the others greeted Yun Jian and Muing. This girl had heavy makeup on and looked very beautiful. When she greeted Yun Jian and Muing, she did not show any signs of unwelcome. But if you asked her how much she welcomed Yun Jian and Muing, she did not show any extreme reaction. It could be seen that she welcomed them on the surface, but in her heart, she did not feel like they were dispensable. This girl was called Lu Yun. In the group of Z country people, other than He Liqing and Lu Yun who were girls, Yun Jian and Muing were the rest of them were guys. In the end, the numbers were gathered quickly, and the group prepared to leave. Yun Jian asked Ce to bring Mad Dragon, and she and Muing would catch up in about a day. Ce had already sent Mad Dragon home, but Yun Jian asked Ce to bring Mad Dragon. Since Ce listened to Yun Jian, no matter how jealous she was, she had to satisfy her first. Just as they entered the Amazon forest, the surrounding scenery was like a fairy tale. It was extremely beautiful. In the group, there were a few people who came with cameras, so they took pictures along the way and walked rather slowly. "Wow, there's a river here, and the water is so big, so wide, and so clear." At this moment, a foreigner exclaimed in English. There were fish swimming in the river, so a few foreigners had already rolled up their sleeves excitedly, took off their shoes, and entered the water to catch fish. "Let's go and have some fun too." Lu Yun was very excited as she took off her shoes and ran into the river. She stepped on the shallow sand in the river and made a yay expression to one of the guys who brought a camera. The river was very wide, and the current was relatively fast. Lu Yun stood in the river and made a pose for the guy with the camera to take pictures of her. With this careless step, Lu Yun's foot was suddenly scratched by a stone. Just as she was about to raise her foot to see what was going on, she heard Yun Jian's voice from afar. "There are piranhas in this river. You have to go ashore immediately." Yun Jian's words made Lu Yun frown. But Lu Yun was the kind of girl who would not show her displeasure on the surface. To put it bluntly, she cared a lot about her image. Even if she really did not like someone, Lu Yun would not show it on her face. Instead, she would treat people coldly. Yun Jian spoke in English, so everyone present heard it clearly. "Where are the piranhas? I still want to take pictures." Lu Yun frowned, and her voice became cold. However, She did not say anything to Yun Jian that showed her displeasure. A few of the foreigners around heard Yun Jian's words and went ashore. Although Lu Yun did not talk back to Yun Jian loudly, she was very indifferent to Yun Jian. When the foreigners heard Yun Jian's words just now, they were also skeptical, because even the tour guide said that piranhas should not appear in this place, but they did not rule out the possibility. However, at this moment Lu Yun suddenly screamed, "Ah!" In the next second, everyone saw a fish that was about 30 centimeters long open its mouth and use its sharp teeth to grab Lu Yun's leg. It was like a surgeon's scalpel crazily biting and cutting. After biting the flesh on Lu Yun's leg, it did not let go. With its body twisting, it actually bit off a piece of flesh on Lu Yun's leg in front of everyone. Chapter 1402. Any smell of blood will trigger a large group of piranhas to attack violently. You still have 3 seconds to go ashore. After 3 seconds, even the gods won't be able to save you. Yun Jian said calmly as she looked at Lu Yun's leg that was bitten off by the piranhas. Piranhas usually attacked in groups. There was once a child who accidentally fell into a pond where piranhas were rearing. Within a few minutes, he was not alive and turned into a horrifying skeleton. This was not nonsense. It was an ironclad fact. No. Lu Yun, who was bitten on her leg, was so scared that she didn't even care about the pain on her leg. She immediately jumped ashore. This piranha that bit her leg didn't want to let go. In the end, Lu Yun desperately shook her leg a few times before it let go. Lu Yun herself didn't see it. The second after she jumped ashore, everyone on the shore saw the piranhas behind her, as if they were injected with chicken blood. They rushed towards her without any regard for their lives. Some of them even bit Lu Yun's skirt. They directly bit Lu Yun's skirt. Will they come ashore? Someone was so scared that he screamed and wanted to run away. It hurts. Lu Yun also sat on the ground and couldn't move. Waves of pain came from her leg. A piece of the flesh on her leg that was bitten by the piranhas had already fallen off. Just looking at it was terrifying, let alone actually experiencing it. Am I going to die? Lu Yun hugged her legs and started wailing. Everyone shut up. Just as the people on the scene were extremely noisy, each and every one of them was scared out of their wits. Some of them even wanted to go back the way they came, and didn't want to continue this trip. Yun Jian yelled at everyone to stop. Even Lu Yun was trying her best to endure the pain. She was so scared that she quieted down. Just now, it was Yun Jian who said that there were piranhas in the river. Moreover, Yun Jian said that, but the group of people around didn't believe her. Yun Jian, how did you know that there's food in the river piranhas? Dan Qingjie was so scared that he started to stutter. Yun Jian did not answer Dan Qingjie's question directly. She glanced at everyone around them and spoke in English that everyone present could understand coldly. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. If you want to survive in the Amazon forest, remember 3 things. Don't touch anything, don't run around, and don't move around. If you can't even do these 3 things, then I can tell you very clearly that you only have 2 choices now. Leave this place or die. Yun Jian's gaze was as sharp as a knife. Every word that came out of her mouth was shocking. Even the tour guide who was leading the way was intimidated by Yun Jian's icy demeanor. Didn't you say that with someone guiding you, it's very safe to play in the Amazon forest? A burly man stepped forward and asked. This burly man was a foreigner, and he spoke in English. Yun Jian suddenly chuckled. In the next second, her gaze turned sharp and she reached into her bag. She didn't even look and accurately took out a knife from her bag. With a fling of her arm, the blade in her hand was flung at the bulky man. The burly man was shocked. However, before the burly man could react, the knife in Yun Jian's hand had already flown past him. Just then, someone suddenly realized that behind the burly man, a cobra was nailed to a tree by Yun Jian's knife. This person was so scared that he screamed. Everyone turned around and saw this scene. This meant that the cobra was hanging behind the burly man. If it wasn't for Yun Jian's timely action, then this burly man would have. While everyone was shocked by Yun Jian's skills, they couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. However, they heard Yun Jian laugh coldly at the burly man. You can't even protect yourself, who else can you rely on? As she spoke, Yun Jian stood in front of everyone. She suddenly took out a bunch of knives from her bag and threw them on the ground. Then she announced to everyone. Chapter 1403. The meaning of Yun Jian's words was that she would not team up with trash. The trash she referred to everyone present. In other words, although she had joined this tour group, she would not team up with anyone in the tour group. To put it bluntly, if the people present wanted to live, they had to do it themselves. Otherwise, even if someone died in front of her, she would not do it again. How can you be like this? Everyone came in with the tour group. How can you do something like watching someone die? Are you Z people all so uneducated? A blonde foreign woman pointed at Yun Jian in fluent English, because she was afraid. As soon as the blonde foreign woman's voice fell, Yun Jian cast a sidelong glance at her. Her eyes emitted a sharp and eye-catching luster, coupled with the skill Yun Jian had just shown in front of everyone. The blonde foreign woman trembled and took a few steps back. Just when the blonde foreign woman was frightened by Yun Jian's frightening eyes and took a big step back, Yun Jian suddenly took a step forward. She stretched out her white slender hand and grabbed the blonde foreign woman's collar. She actually dragged the blonde foreign woman's figure to the spacious river where the piranhas gathered. The blonde foreign woman was directly suppressed by Yun Jian in 3 seconds. As long as Yun Jian gently let go, the blonde foreign woman would fall into the river and become a meal for the piranhas. The blonde foreign woman immediately realized that her collar was being pulled by Yun Jian. Her body was tilted. As long as Yun Jian let go, she would become a meal for the piranhas below. Just now, Lu Yun was bitten by a piranha, and a piece of meat was bitten off. Now there are hundreds of piranhas in the river. If Yun Jian let go. No. Let me go. The blonde foreign woman was scared. She began to struggle to escape from Yun Jian's grasp. However, Yun Jian's strength was so great that the blonde foreign woman had no room to break free. For the first time, the blonde foreign woman felt terrified and regretted what she had just said. At this time, Yun Jian's soft words reached the blonde foreign woman's ears. At the same time, everyone present was shocked. So you can choose not to listen to me. Don't worry. I'll let you experience what it's like to be uneducated. With that, Yun Jian loosened her grip. The blonde foreign woman was suppressed by Yun Jian, and the back of her head and back faced the hundreds of piranhas in the river. The blonde foreign woman could not loosen her grip on Yun Jian. If Yun Jian were to loosen her grip, the blonde foreign woman would end up in the mouths of the thousands of piranhas. This made the blonde foreign woman feel as if her scalp was numb, and she was frightened. Yun Jian suddenly said this. Before the blonde foreign woman could react, Yun Jian had already let go of her hand. The blonde foreign woman immediately fell into the river with her back facing downwards. I don't want to die. At the same time, the blonde foreign woman screamed. She was scared out of her wits and didn't even know how to react. Just when the blonde foreign woman fell 10 centimeters into the river, Yun Jian suddenly reached out and grabbed the blonde foreign woman's collar again, preventing her from falling into the river. The piranhas in the river began to leap and jump, wanting to hunt the blonde foreign woman, a huge delicacy. Some of the fish even bit the blonde foreign woman's loose trousers and tore off her trousers and clothes in a few bites. Everyone present was frightened. They couldn't imagine how miserable the blonde foreign woman's fate would be if Yun Jian loosened her grip. At this time, Yun Jian's faint voice sounded in a trance. She sneered and said to the blonde foreign woman, "I can kill people easily. What's the point of not saving a life?" As soon as these words came out, coupled with Yun Jian's actions at the moment, the surrounding people were horrified. She really dared. Chapter 1404. Yun Jian's words stimulated the hearts of everyone present, especially Ren Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie, who invited Yun Jian to join their group. Ren Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie both thought that Yun Jian was just an ordinary girl. So when Yun Jian and Muing wanted to go to the Amazon forest alone, they came to invite them. That was because Yun Jian and Mu Ying were two girls, and under the circumstances where it was dangerous for them to go alone, the possibility of them joining the group was higher. Later on, Yun Jian and Mu Ying really joined their tour group, which made Ren Zhongwei and Dan Qingjie even more certain that Yun Jian and Mu Ying were just weak girls. But Yun Jian's performance just now was not weak at all. That strange skill, that amazing observation. If it wasn't for Yun Jian, whether it was Lu Yun or the foreign man, they would not be able to escape death. Just when the blonde foreign woman was scared out of her wits, Yun Jian directly pulled her up from the river, and then stretched out her leg to kick the blonde foreign woman away. The blonde foreign woman was already scared out of her wits. After being thrown to the ground by Yun Jian, the foreigners who were with her immediately came forward to help her up. Yun Jian turned around. After she scared the blonde foreign woman, she walked over and picked up the blades that she had spread out on the ground. A piece of flesh on Lu Yun's leg was bitten off by the piranhas. Among the few people in the tour group, there was a medical staff. This medical staff anesthetized Lu Yun's leg, and Lu Yun temporarily did not feel pain. Yun Jian picked up the blades on the ground one by one, and then in front of everyone, hit the blades one by one in every corner of her body. These blades were hidden by Yun Jian in her hair, clothes, and everywhere she hid, the blades completely disappeared without a trace. Yun Jian, on the other hand, was the same as when she first arrived. There was no trace of a hidden weapon on her. Yun Jian simply threw away her bag, and then hid the butterfly knife, 2 daggers, and the blades in the bag to her side. This bag was not given to her by Qin Yiru, so Yun Jian did not feel the slightest bit of reluctance to throw away this bag. Who the hell are you? How can you hide weapons on your body without anyone noticing? Dan Qingjie was very surprised. He saw Yun Jian hide so many weapons on her body. But strangely, after Yun Jian hid so many blades and weapons on her body, it was as if these things were not hidden by her at all, and no one could see any traces of hidden weapons on her body. After being reminded by Dan Qingjie, the surrounding people all realized this point, and were a little surprised. Just as Yun Jian was about to hide the last 3 blades on her body, He Liqing suddenly reached out, and took the 3 blades from Yun Jian's hands. Then, He Liqing stood up and looked at Yun Jian. With a hint of determination in her eyes, she said, "Yun Jian, I've decided, I'm not going to be a useless person. I'll walk out of the Amazon forest with my own strength. This trip will not be in vain." He Liqing was a very mature woman. From the beginning, Yun Jian felt that she was like a big sister. Yun Jian had a good impression of He Liqing. He Liqing's words made Yun Jian squint her eyes. She was obviously satisfied with He Liqing's performance. But with He Liqing taking the lead, the 20 people around them were still indifferent. Walking out of the Amazon forest with her own strength. This sentence was easy to say, but if one really chose to do it, normal people would not have the courage to do so. Not long after He Liqing said this, there was another group of people's voices coming from the entrance of the Amazon forest. Obviously, the people following the group were not only Yun Jian's group. Maybe because Yun Jian's group had delayed for a long time, the people following the group had caught up. In spite of it, both Yun Jian and Mu Ying frowned when they saw who was leading the group of people who had followed the group. The people leading the group were Leng Hanja, Leng Lingling, and Guo Xiao. Mu Ying did not expect Leng Hanja to really follow her. Yun Jian, on the other hand, raised a brow in disdain. They had actually stalled here for so long. Chapter 1405. When Yun Jian and Mu Ying saw Leng Hanja and the others, Leng Hanja and the others also saw Yun Jian and Mu Ying. The moment they saw Yun Jian and Mu Ying, Leng Hanja and the others rushed over like crazy. Leng Hanja was afraid that Mu Ying would shake him off again, so he rushed over and shouted at Mu Ying, "Ying!" When Leng Lingling saw Yun Jian and Mu Ying, her face darkened. She ran over and scolded Yun Jian and Mu Ying. "You actually abandoned us and ran away just now. How shameless. We came here together, and we took care of you along the way, but what happened to you? You actually thought that you could fly a helicopter, and left without waiting for us. How can there be such a shameless person in this world? I'm so angry." Lung Lingling's first sentence was directed at Yun Jian and Mu Ying, and the second sentence was directed at Yun Jian. Lung Lingling was still frustrated. Just as she was about to say something else, Dan Qingji's terrified voice rang. Dan Qingji's fearful question was asked while looking at Yun Jian. What's wrong with you? You know how to fly a helicopter? How old are you? You know how to fly a helicopter? Lung Lingling's casual words caused an uproar among Dan Qingji's group of people. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked and couldn't react for a moment. Yun Jian knew how to fly a helicopter. That wasn't a car. It was a helicopter. A helicopter pilot had to learn for a few years before he could officially operate a helicopter, let alone fly one. I'm a pilot. I accidentally saw this girl from Z country flying a helicopter. At this moment, a clean-looking foreign man with a high-nose bridge and brown hair spoke in English. Everyone present could speak English, and their English was not bad. So when the foreign man spoke, everyone turned to look at Yun Jian. However, the foreign man who claimed to be a pilot exclaimed, and his tone was full of admiration for Yun Jian. I've been flying for more than 10 years, and I've seen many old pilots operate a helicopter. Today is the first time I've seen a girl operate a helicopter with such precision. This doesn't seem like something a teenage girl can do. Even my master, Captain Mitteran, can't fly a helicopter so perfectly like her. She avoided the airflow and operated it smoothly without any turbulence. The foreign man who claimed to be a pilot had already reached the point of admiration for Yun Jian. When the people around them heard the foreign man's words, they were all stunned. Lung Lingling originally wanted to scold Yun Jian, but she didn't know that the people around her admired Yin even more. Pfft, what are you bragging about? Who knows if you're with her and purposely praising her? Lung Lingling glared fiercely at Yun Jian, and just when she was about to refute, Yun Jian suddenly narrowed her eyes, and she felt the slight change in the atmosphere. In the next second, the birds and beasts in the silent forest suddenly screamed and retreated, as if they had met their natural enemy. What's wrong? Suddenly feeling the silence around her, and the chirping of the birds and beasts before they left, Lung Lingling was so scared that she trembled violently. Then she asked in fear. Just as he asked the question, a group of black people jumped out from all directions. These people were wearing clothes made of various animal skins. A few of them were bare-chested, and they held sharp wooden weapons in their hands. They surrounded Yun Jian and the others in the middle. When they saw these people, who jumped out from all directions, the people around them exclaimed. The tour guide even shouted in surprise. Chapter 1406. When the tour guide saw the group of savages suddenly rushing out of the forest, he was obviously shocked. There was one reason for this shock, and that was that this group of savages was actually called the Savages tribe. There wasn't much difference between the savages and ordinary humans, but there was one difference. Although the savages didn't look much different from ordinary humans, their way of life was completely different. The savages in the Savages tribe were used to wearing clothes made of animal fur. Even their weapons were the most primitive bows and long weapons. The Savages tribe had their own language of communication, and they were usually as ferocious as beasts. Although the tour guide knew that there was a Savages tribe somewhere in the Amazon forest, he was never worried about encountering savages. That was because the savages in the Savages tribe had their own territories. Other than a few Amazon forests, they would never enter other territories. They were the kings of the Amazon forest. They had their own territory in the Amazon forest. They would never leave their territory to look for food in other places, and would never allow outsiders to enter their territory. If anyone trespassed into their territory, they would take the initiative to attack the humans who strayed into their territory. If the savages were so ferocious, why didn't they use modern firearms to subdue them? There was only one explanation for this problem, and that was that in the Amazon forest, these savages were the kings of the jungle. They were familiar with the terrain, and knew how to use the terrain to avoid guns. They could even jump around freely like monkeys using the branches and vines of the forest. That was why guns could not hit the savages. Entering the Savages tribe was a huge taboo in the Amazon forest. The tour guide's job was to avoid the risk of entering the savages' tribe and bring the tourists to the Amazon forest. However, the savages who had never left their territory in the savages' tribe suddenly appeared here and surrounded them. It was obvious that they were not friendly. At that moment, even the tour guide did not know why. Guguguguguga. The savages started talking in their own language after they appeared. Yin Jian squinted her eyes and did not move. Lung Lingling, who was scared out of her wits after hearing the tour guide's words, suddenly turned around and screamed, "I don't want to be eaten." She wanted to run, but was knocked unconscious by a savage after taking 2 steps. Not long after, the dozens of people present were suppressed by this group of savages. Yin Jian and Muing did not resist. There were a lot of savages, and they quickly tied up Yin Jian's group with vines and brought them to the tribe. It was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they were brought to the savage tribe. Yin Jian and dozens of others were exposed to the sun. The group of savages grabbed their long weapons and rushed to the cave noisily. "What is this place? Will we be eaten?" Lung Lingling screamed as soon as she was put down. With Lung Lingling's shout, the dozens of people around her were immediately frightened. Their faces were extremely pale, and they were all worried about what would happen next. Yin Jian narrowed her eyes and looked around. Her heart was slightly touched. This place was still the same as before. Nothing had changed. Just as he was thinking about this, he saw the group of savages surrounding an older savage walking out of the cave. The group of savages were talking in their own language with a ji-gu-gu sound. The older savage was obviously the leader of this group of savages. After the barbarian leader walked over, a few of the barbarians carried out a few large pots from the cave. Lung Lingling could not hold it in anymore when she saw the pots. She said with tears flowing down her face, They are really going to eat us. I don't want to be eaten, I don't want to woo-woo." As she screamed, she struggled to break free from the vines but to no avail. The savages surrounded the leader of the savages and surrounded Yin Jian's group. At the same time, this group of savages was talking in a language that no one could understand. After a while, the pots were lit on fire. The size of the pots was just right to contain a living person. Seeing this, not only Lung Lingling, everyone screamed. However, the vines were very strong. No one could break free from the vines. The leader of the savages said something, and there were already savages walking towards Yin Jian's group. Just as those savages were about to reach Yin Jian's group, Yin Jian suddenly shouted at the leader of the savages. Even if they were going to be eaten, there should be an order. With Yin Jian's shout, those savages immediately noticed Yin Jian's group. Lung Lingling and a few others were beside Yin Jian. Lung Lingling was already so scared that she did not dare to say a word. However, with Yin Jian's shout, she successfully attracted the attention of those savages. "Are you crazy? If you want to die, don't drag us down. If you want to die, go and die yourself." Lung Lingling cried and shouted at Yin Jian. The people around Yin Jian instantly hated Yin Jian. Thus, they all started to point out Yin Jian's faults. However, at this moment, they saw the leader of the savages suddenly stop. Then he hesitated and actually walked towards Yin Jian. An even more shocking scene happened. The leader of the savages took 2 steps towards Yin Jian's side. He cried out in shock, and then strode towards Yin Jian. When he was 3 meters away from Yin Jian, he knelt down. The leader of the savages stretched out his hand and knelt down heavily towards Yin Jian. The rest of the savages saw their leader kneeling down towards Yin Jian, and they all followed. In the next moment, all of the savages knelt down towards Yin Jian. The scene was shocking and everyone who was with Yin Jian was in an uproar. Even the tour guide was dumbfounded when he saw this scene. Others might not know, but as a tour guide, he was very clear. This group of savages had never bowed their heads to any humans. Any humans who accidentally entered their territory were like wanted criminals and would be hunted down by them. Usually, if one was kidnapped by the savages, the chances of survival were pitifully low. This group of savages were the kings of the jungle. They were familiar with the terrain and could use the terrain and years of wilderness survival experience to defeat any strong expert. However, today they knelt down towards a human. This was a strange thing that the tour guide had never heard of in his entire life. Thus, the tour guide widened his eyes. The rest of the people who were with Yun Jian also widened their eyes. They were so shocked that they could not be described with words. Every pair of eyes stared at Yun Jian. It was as if they wanted an explanation and wanted to know what was going on. Why are they all kneeling towards Yun Jian? This is impossible. She's not their king? Aren't savages only going to listen to the king that they think is the most powerful? Why? Could it be that Yun Jian is their king? Dan Qingjie was so shocked that his eyeballs were about to fall out. Chapter 1407. The world of the barbarians followed the law of survival in the jungle, where the strong ruled. Before entering this place, there was an introduction about the barbarians on the tour group's billboards. The reason why the tour group knew so much about the barbarians was because they had successfully captured a barbarian 3 months ago. Now this barbarian was brought to a nearby research facility for research and observation. The world of the barbarians did not need the weak, where the strong ruled. A group of barbarians would form a tribe. Just like this group of barbarians in the tribe, they would choose the strongest and most powerful barbarian to be the king of their tribe. Normally, the status of this barbarian in their tribe was similar to that of an emperor in ancient times. Unless you could defeat this king and take over the throne, otherwise, the barbarians in the tribe would listen to whatever the king said. This was the law of survival in the barbarians' tribe, where the strong ruled. This was stated on the tour guide's banner at the entrance, so everyone who stood here paid attention to it out of curiosity. But now, this group of barbarians who followed the law of survival actually knelt down in front of Yun Jian, under the lead of the barbarian, who was obviously the leader of this group of barbarians. What did this mean? Oh my God, these barbarians are kneeling down to us humans. This is a strange story. I have never heard of it before. The barbarians in the tribe are very strict about survival in the jungle. They would never listen to the weak, not to mention kneeling down to a human. The tour guide was stunned. He stared blankly at the scene in front of him, which scared him out of his wits. He even regained his senses from the fear of being cooked alive by the barbarians just a moment ago. At this moment, everyone was staring blankly at Yun Jian. They watched as Yun Jian accepted the worship of the barbarians, but she did not show any signs of surprise. However, Yun Jian's expression was normal as she stared at the group of barbarians kneeling down in front of her. Yun Jian, what is going on? He Li Qing was holding the 3 blades she took from Yun Jian. She moved closer to Yun Jian and asked. At this moment, everyone present was tied up by vines. Just as Li Qing moved closer to Yun Jian and asked, she saw Yun Jian tear apart the vines binding her body, like she was holding a pair of scissors, then stood up. Yun Jian did not answer Li Qing's question. Instead, she took 2 steps towards the group of barbarians who were kneeling down in front of her. After Yun Jian let go of the vines binding her, Muing also let go of the vines and stood up. Yun Jian and Muing looked as if they were not tied up by the vines at all. This scene frightened everyone around, because Yun Jian and Muing were indeed tied up just now. Therefore, the current situation could only be explained by the fact that the vines binding them were not a problem at all. Hey, you guys, hurry up and untie us. Seeing that Yun Jian and Muing had broken free from the ropes, Lung Lingling felt uncomfortable being tied up by the vines, so she shouted at Yun Jian and Mu Ying's backs in a delicate manner. Lung Lingling had just shouted until here when she saw that Yun Jian did not respond to her. Instead, she strode forward and walked to where the leader of the barbarians was kneeling in front of her. Without saying anything, she walked over and viciously kicked the barbarian leader's abdomen, sending him flying 3 meters away on the spot. That way, it was as if she was punishing her own subordinates. Then, Yun Jian said a few words in the barbarian language in front of everyone. Her tone was rather fierce, scaring the group of barbarians until they started trembling. This scene shocked the crowd once again. Then, she turned around to look at everyone, and finally locked her gaze on the tour guide. Yun Jian, you actually know how to speak in the barbarian language. Who are you? Lung Hanja looked at Yun Jian in a daze and asked. Yun Jian, who was asked the crux of the matter, smiled faintly, but said something that shocked everyone present. I've been in the Amazon forest for half a year. If I can't even discipline my own subordinates in half a year, how can I deserve to be called king by them? Subordinates she was referring to. Chapter 1408. You can say that. Yun Jian said as she walked in front of the tour guide. Standing in front of the tour guide, Yun Jian looked down at the tour guide, who was still tied up by the vines. Then she asked the tour guide, "Where is the research facility? Where is the barbarian that you captured?" Although Yun Jian's words were a question, it didn't seem like she was asking a question. Instead, it sounded like she was interrogating the tour guide. The tour guide trembled. Perhaps it was because Yun Jian's kick that sent the barbarian leader flying was too ruthless. The tour guide was a little scared. He quickly said, "It's in a building 200 meters away from the entrance of the Amazon forest. There is an Amazon forest wildlife research facility there. The barbarians that were captured earlier were also kept there for tourists to enjoy." The tour guide lost his confidence in the end. If the tour guide didn't guess wrongly, the reason why Yun Jian chose to follow the tour group was because she saw the description of the barbarian that was just captured on the tour group at the entrance. The truth was that Yun Jian followed the tour group because she saw the description of the barbarian that was captured and kept in the research facility. It was even kept for tourists to enjoy. The barbarian tribe actually owed Yun Jian a favor in the past. When she first entered the Amazon forest, Yun Jian didn't know anything. Later on, she accidentally entered the barbarian tribe. Because of Yun Jian's strength, the barbarians couldn't do anything to her. After following this group of barbarians, Yun Jian quickly learned how to survive in a natural environment like the Amazon forest. Later on, Yun Jian directly became the queen of the barbarian tribe. She was very clear that if she wanted to be the queen, the least she could do was not allow her subordinates to be bullied, especially when it was kept for tourists to enjoy. This was something that Yun Jian couldn't tolerate. That was why Yun Jian joined the tour group to find out more information. As for why the barbarians left their own territory to attack the humans, it was because after the previous barbarian was captured, the barbarians who had a collective consciousness wanted to find their companion that was captured. In fact, because the barbarian was captured by humans, the group of barbarians hated humans. Just now, this group of savages really wanted to cook and eat Yun Jian and her group alive. And because Yun Jian had changed so much, the group of savages did not recognize Yun Jian at all. After all, Yun Jian was still very young when she stayed in the Amazon forest for 6 months. Her physical body was still that of her previous life. "Take me to the Wildlife Research Institute now," Yun Jian said to the tour guide. As soon as Yun Jian spoke, the tour guide looked a little embarrassed. The tour guide was here to lead the way. If he returned to the exit, wouldn't Ren Zhongwei, Dan Qingjie, and the other tourists have to follow him back? It's fine if you don't leave, but you can stay and be their dinner. Yun Jian pointed at the savages not far away. Now, no one dared to say that they didn't want to leave. Everyone was fighting to leave. Therefore, the group quickly untied the vines and walked towards the entrance of the Amazon forest. There was still some distance to the entrance of the Amazon forest. Yun Jian had too many secrets, so the tour guide couldn't help but ask Yun Jian as they walked, "You said you stayed in the Amazon forest for half a year?" "Yeah," Yun Jian replied coldly. The tour guide gulped. Before he could ask again, a foreign man who knew Chinese spoke up. "I heard that many assassin and secret agent organizations would throw their assassins or secret agents into the Amazon forest and let them survive for half a year without any weapons. It's a game where the weak are eliminated and the winner is the king. Could it be that you were thrown into the Amazon forest as a secret agent or an assassin?" Chapter 1409. After all, why would a normal girl come all the way to the Amazon forest for half a year? Let's not talk about whether her family would agree or not. A normal girl might not even know what kind of place the Amazon forest was, right? In 1999, The internet was not widely known yet, and there was no way to search for information on the internet. People in that era could only find out about major international news through newspapers, television, and other channels. As for a place like the Amazon forest, even adults might not know about it. Yun Jian was from Country Z, and Country Z was far from the Amazon forest. So the foreign man who spoke Chinese had to ask Yun Jian about it. The people around them suddenly heard the foreign man saying something they had never heard of before. So they all turned around to look. The foreign man stared at Yun Jian for 2 seconds. It was obvious that this foreign man had some understanding of secret agents and assassins. No comment. Yun Jian's words interrupted the foreign man's train of thought, and he rolled his eyes. Okay, I won't ask anymore. Can I ask for your name? Oh right, before I ask for your name, I'll tell you mine first. My name is Bala. I'm from Country G. After the foreign man named Bala introduced himself to Yun Jian, he walked side by side with Yun Jian, while looking at Yun Jian. It seemed like he wanted to get her name from Yun Jian. Yun Jian, she said briefly, there was nothing to hide. Oh, Yun Jian, that's a nice Chinese name. Bala praised after hearing it. Yun Jian did not reply after that. On the other hand, Lung Lingling, who was beside Lung Hanja, was very interested when she heard Bala talk about secret agents and assassins. Guo, who was with Lung Hanja, was a police academy student, so he was very interested in such things as well. Hence, Guo and Lung Lingling started talking to Bala very quickly. Lung Lingling especially, she had never heard of secret agents and assassins, so she started chatting happily with Bala. Do secret agents and assassins really exist in this world? I always thought that they only existed in movies. Lung Lingling said to Bala longingly. Bala laughed heartily, and then said to Lung Lingling, of course it exists. And it's very likely that it's right next to you. When he said this, Bala seemed to be deep in thought. His gaze even drifted slightly. Really? Lung Lingling shrunk back in fear. She swallowed her saliva and asked Bala cautiously, how did you know all this? I specifically looked into it, Bala said with a smile. Lung Lingling, Guo, and Bala's laughter could be heard along the way. Yun Jian and Mu Ying, who were walking at the front, remained calm and collected. Lu Yun's leg was bitten by the piranhas. At this moment, because she was anesthetized, she was supported by someone to move forward. For the time being, there was no fatal pain. At this moment, Lung Lingling, who was standing behind Yun Jian, once again asked Bala with an expectant tone. Then who is the best secret agent or assassin in this world? Do you know? Hearing Lung Lingling's question, Bala paused for a moment before answering Lung Lingling seriously. At the same time, his tone became solemn. If you ask who is the best secret agent or assassin in this world, it's none other than the number one secret agent, slaying God. Hearing the 2 words slaying God, even Lung Lingling, who had always ignored Yun Jian, could not help but become more solemn. When the people around them heard the 2 words, they paused in their steps as well. However, Bala's words were heard again. Slaying God, the number one secret agent on the secret agent ranking, is the best secret agent in this world. She's the only secret agent who has escaped the control of an Hun organization. At the same time, she's also the true king of completing missions with a success rate of 100%. Chapter 14:10. Lung Lingling's tone was cautious when she asked the question, as if she was afraid that she might have asked something she should not have. In Lung Lingling's opinion, Bala must be an outstanding talent to know about such a powerful character. Therefore, Lung Lingling's attitude toward Bala was filled with obvious admiration. Yes, she's definitely the most powerful character on the secret agent and assassin leaderboard. Bala nodded solemnly at Lung Lingling. Oh yeah, who's the Hun organization that you mentioned earlier? Guo asked, catching on to a detail that Bala had mentioned earlier. Bala patiently explained to Guo as soon as Guo opened his mouth to ask. The Hun organization is the world's top assassin organization. Its position is on par with the kosher mercenaries. If you accidentally offend the Hun organization, or the kosher mercenaries internationally, you'll be hunted down and killed. Even the people on the secret agent or assassin leaderboard are powerless against them. Bala was very patient when it came to secret agents and assassins. It was rare to meet someone who was interested in secret agents and assassins. Bala could not wait to tell Lung Lingling and Guo everything that she knew. Then, does that include the most powerful slaying god that you mentioned earlier? Lung Lingling's tone was filled with admiration when she mentioned slaying god. It was as if she was talking about someone whom she admired the most. Lung Lingling's tone even became cautious. Ever since Bala, Lung Lingling, and Guo mentioned slaying god, Yun Jian's ears kept ringing. Yun Jian listened, but did not say a word. However, Bala continued, "No, slaying god is an exception. I think even if slaying god offended the Enhan organization, they won't be able to take her down. As for the Kosha mercenaries that I mentioned earlier, they're slaying god's own force." Lung Lingling and Guo could not help but gasp when they heard what Bala said. Toward the end, Bala lamented, "I think slaying god's achievements today are all thanks to her innate talent. That's how she got to where she is now so easily. Her talent is really enviable." Bala's lament made Lung Lingling and Guo fall silent. At this moment, Yun Jian suddenly snorted coldly. She secretly laughed and said, "Extraordinary talent? How did he reach his current position so easily? She was only able to get to where she is today by luck." She was referring to slaying God in his past life. What do you know? You're just an ordinary military school girl. Do you really think that you're slaying God, the top secret agent on the secret agent ranking? You keep talking about it. I think you're just jealous of slaying God's prowess. He's jealous. Yun Jian had just finished speaking when Lung Lingling continued. Yun Jian didn't want to pay attention to this. Yun Jian just took another step forward. At this moment, no one noticed that Bala, who was standing behind Yun Jian, had found the spot closest to Yun Jian. He suddenly clenched his fist and charged toward Yun Jian. His fist was about to land on Yun Jian. No one expected such a turn of events. While everyone was still in shock, they saw Yun Jian, who was walking in front, turn sideways reflexively. She reached out and turned her fist at lightning speed. In the next second, her fist collided with Bala's sneak attack. However, that was not the end. The moment Yun Jian's fist collided with Bala's, her hand snaked nimbly around Bala's wrist like a snake's body. In less than 3 seconds, Yun Jian had grasped Bala's weak spot. With a tug, she pinned Bala's hand down and used the force of her hand to pin Bala to the ground. This turn of events did not take more than 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Before anyone could react, Yun Jian had already subdued Bala, who had ambushed her, and ended the battle. When everyone realized what had happened, they were dumbfounded. No one expected Yun Jian to be so agile. Chapter 14:11. Bala's tone was eerie when he said that. It was completely different from how he looked at slaying God with admiration earlier. Everyone was dumbfounded by the turn of events. Especially when Bala was attacking Yun Jian at a ferocious speed, but was subdued by Yun Jian. Everyone was dumbfounded. Slaying God? You. The slaying God you're talking about. Is she the one you told us about earlier? Lung Lingling's eyes widened. When the incident happened, Lung Lingling's eyes were wider than anyone else's. She stared at Yun Jian and Bala blankly, asking in disbelief. Isn't she Yun Jian? How could she be? Guo asked in horror. He shook his head and stared at Bala and Yun Jian. He wanted to know the truth. Their instincts told them that the slaying God that Bala mentioned earlier really existed in this world. However, that person was Yun Jian right in front of them. This was something that no one present was willing to believe. However, even if they did not believe it, they were still dumbfounded. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She grabbed Bala, but before she could speak, Bala had already turned his head to the side. Although Yun Jian held his hand, Bala still spoke to Lung Lingling, Guo, Lung Hanja and the rest. How is that possible? How is that not possible? Didn't you see it clearly earlier? She captured me in an instant. I don't know anyone in this world who can capture me in an instant other than slaying God. Bala cackled and continued. I'm the second assassin on the assassin chart, Janice. Since I started my career, I've only met one opponent, and that person is slaying God. As he spoke, Bala stretched out his free hand and placed it on his face. He gently tore at a line along the contours of his face. Then that familiar face was directly peeled off. Ah! Lung Lingling saw Bala tear her face off, and she took 2 steps back in fright. What Bala, who was also Janice, did not surprise her. It was obvious that Yunjian knew that Janice had changed his appearance. She also knew that Janice's face was covered by a human skin mask. However, even if Yunjian had seen through this, she was not a god and did not know Janice's identity. Yunjian didn't know until this moment, but she didn't appear to be very surprised. She had wanted to deny her identity as slaying God earlier, but Janice seemed to have known what she was planning to do. Before she could say a word, he had cut off all excuses to deny her identity. Yunjian's lips curved into a red arc. Yunjian was no stranger to Janice. Janice, who was ranked second on the assassin ranking, was indeed a powerful character. He was good at tracking and counter-tracking. In her previous life, Yunjian had encountered Janice before, and it was Janice who came to her and was beaten up by her. Therefore, Yunjian was not surprised that Janice recognized her. Yunjian, you. It's impossible. How can you be the slaying god, who is ranked first on the assassin ranking? Slaying god should be a great and powerful character. How can it be you? Lung Lingling did not believe it, and she would not believe it either. The people around them looked at Yunjian in disbelief. Everyone thought so. After all, Yunjian was still young. I'm afraid you're the only one in this world who came to me to be beaten up. Janice, it's been a long time. Yunjian's lips curved into a red arc. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief when she said that calmly. Especially when she said long time no see. It could be considered as a direct admission of her identity. Lung Lingling, Guoxiao, Lung Hanja and the rest were dumbfounded. Was she not a student from Min City's military school? Chapter 14:12. Yunjian ignored the crowd's reaction. After Yunjian finished her sentence, she released her grip on Janice. At the same time, she extended her leg. Before Janice could react, she kicked Janice's waist in the back, causing him to stumble forward. Janice was not an ordinary person. After being kicked by Yunjian, he staggered 2 steps forward before regaining his footing. He turned around, wiped the corner of his mouth, and looked at Yunjian. Slaying God, the number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, is among this group of useless people. I didn't expect that. TSK. Janice stared back at Yunjian without backing down as he spoke. Did he just call everyone present a group of useless people? The crowd had just recovered from their shock. After hearing what Janice said, they were all furious. However, no one dared to voice their anger. Janice claimed to be the number 2 assassin on the assassin ranking. An assassin? That was someone who could kill. Moreover, he was the number 2 assassin on the assassin ranking. Tell me what you want. Yunjian stood calmly on the spot. She narrowed her eyes and looked lazy, but she was more alert than everyone present. Janice was not someone who was easy to control. He was completely different from Mad Dragon and Peter. How could the number 2 assassin on the assassin ranking be a weakling? If he was a weakling, the number 2 assassin ranking would definitely not belong to him. After all, there was a huge difference between the top 3 assassins or secret agents on the assassin ranking and the top 10 assassins or secret agents on the ranking. In other words, anyone who could climb to the top 3 would be an all-powerful and fearsome existence in the entire world, who heard of their names. I don't have any other intentions. I just want to ask you for a favor. Janice did not beat around the bush and asked Yunjian, directly in front of the stunned crowd. Initially, the crowd thought that since Yunjian was also a powerful character, she would definitely reach an agreement with Janice, who was equally powerful. After all, it was common knowledge to have one more friend and one less enemy. Just when everyone thought that Yunjian would gladly agree to Janice's request, and even befriend him, she spoke abruptly. You're right. You have to know that with your skills, you don't have the right to ask for a favor from me. Yunjian's words were laced with arrogance. The crowd was stunned. However, Janice continued to speak to Yunjian. TSK. In that case, we'll have to face each other head-on. With that, Janice reached out and took out a Browning pistol from the travel bag that he had been carrying along. Janice held the pistol in his hand and pointed the muzzle at Yunjian. When the crowd saw the Browning pistol, they all became restless. Gun! It's a gun! The one who reacted the most was Lung Lingling. The moment Lung Lingling saw the pistol, she screamed and wanted to run away. Lung Hanja, Guoxiao Lu Yun, He Liqing, Dan Qingjia Ren Zongwei, and the others wanted to run away. However, they heard Yun Jian's voice that was not at a disadvantage. Do you think you can defeat me with just a gun? Yun Jian's voice was light. However, when she spoke, everyone was shocked. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.